Technology is ready. Well, good evening, everybody. To start off, we have a statutory public meeting with 2 items on the agenda. So I'll call the statutory public meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. and ask for any amendments to the agenda.
To you, Mayor Lawrence, I have none.
Thank you. And a motion that the agenda for the statutory public meeting of July the 19th be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Bone, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Lawrence, I have none.
Thank you. Zoning bylaw amendment applications. First one, 4.1, 18.5, 18, and 16 Front Street. Zoning bylaw amendment. Applicant is the Sioux Funeral Home. This public meeting is being held pursuant to Section 39 and 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13 as amended, Z07-2023. A zoning bylaw amendment application has been submitted by the Sioux Funeral Home for the subject lands located at 18.5 Front Street, 18 Front Street, and 16 Front Street. The zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted in order to permit the construction of a funeral home and accessory dwelling units on the subject lands. The planning coordinator will confirm how notice was served to advertise the public meeting.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lawrence, notice was circulated to internal staff and external bodies by email. Notice was also advertised in the Sioux Bulletin and on the municipal website and various social media, as well as sent by mail to various agencies and property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands. Signs were also posted on the subject lands.
Thank you. The planning coordinator will provide a summary of the application.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, an application for zoning bylaw amendment was submitted by Sioux Lookout Funeral Home for the subject lands at 18.5, 18, and 16 Front Street. Sioux Lookout Funeral Home currently operates the funeral home at 128 Front Street and have purchased this vacant property, meaning 18.5, 18, and 16 Front Street, in order to construct a new building that better suits their needs. The purpose of the application is to permit the construction of a funeral home and accessory dwelling units on the subject property. The subject property is located in the urban Sioux Lookout settlement area and designated commercial core in the official plan. The subject lands are zoned residential type 2, R2, and a funeral home and accessory dwelling units are not permitted uses within the R2 zone. Thus, a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment is required. The original application also required an amendment to permit a reduced number of parking spaces on the subject lands. However, the applicant has since amended the site plan, and the site plan now meets the minimum parking requirements of the zoning bylaw. The site plan included in your reports and attached to the report is the most up-to-date version. It is staff's understanding that the subject lands are currently made up of 3 separately conveyable lots, meaning, for example, that 18.5 Front Street could be sold individually from 18 and 16 Front Street. Staff are recommending that if the zoning bylaw amendment application is approved, the applicant confirm whether a deeming bylaw is required to legally merge the lots together as part of the site plan control process. If the rezoning is passed, site plan control will apply as the proposed development is commercial in nature. The subject lands have a lot area of 3,257 square meters and have lot frontage on Front Street, 2nd Avenue, and the Front Street Laneway, which are all open, municipally maintained roads. The proposed funeral home has a floor area of 555 square meters, and the second story containing the proposed accessory dwelling units has a floor area of 171 square meters. 30 regular parking spaces and 2 barrier-free parking spaces are provided on the subject lands, and 7 regular on-street parking spaces, I believe that's 8 actually, I think that's a typo, 8 regular parking spaces are allocated along the Front Street lot line based on the commercial use. All planning decisions in the municipality must be consistent with the provincial policy statement and conform with our official plan. The provincial policy statement is a high-level guiding document that guides planning and development in Ontario by outlining policies intended to ensure that development is sustainable from a financial, environmental, and social perspective. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, as it directs most growth to settlement areas, encourages efficient development and land use patterns, describes municipal servicing as the preferred form of servicing for settlement areas, and promotes the efficient use of those infrastructures. The PBS also encourages a range and mix of housing types and consideration for major facilities such as rail facilities. The proposed development is located in the urban Sioux Lookout settlement area. It would develop an existing and currently underutilized lots. It would tie into municipal water and sewer services, and it would also add additional housing types to the municipal housing stock. No impacts to the CN rail yard, which is located immediately south of the subject lands, are anticipated, and the proposed development is located no closer to the rail yard than existing development in the area. The subject lands are designated commercial core in the official plan, which permits a range of commercial and service uses as well as certain residential uses. A funeral home and accessory residential dwelling units are permitted in the designation. The official plan also discusses policy regarding land use compatibility to ensure that proposed development takes into consideration potential effects on existing and future uses. The proposed development is adequately buffered from abutting residential uses as it meets the required setbacks, open space requirements, and other provisions of the zoning bylaw. The proposed main floor funeral home and second-story accessory dwelling units are not anticipated to have a negative impact on surrounding residential uses. Staff note that there are existing commercial uses in the area, and the commercial core designation indicates that commercial development in the area is intended. The official plan also encourages infill, intensification, and the efficient use of lands. It encourages municipal servicing, the protection of the rail yard, as well as protection of new uses in proximity to the rail yard, and site plan control requirements, which the proposed development would be subject to. Overall, the application conforms with the policies of the official plan. The subject lands are located within the residential type 2 zone of the zoning bylaw. A funeral home and accessory dwelling units are not permitted uses in the R2 zone. The proposed development satisfies all other requirements of the zoning bylaw, including the most stringent of the R2 zone requirements in areas such as land area, setbacks, lot coverage, etc. As mentioned, the original application included a reduction in required parking spaces, but the site plan has been modified since then, and the minimum required parking spaces for the proposed uses are now provided. Various agencies and municipal staff responded to the circulated notice. Staff did receive one letter from a member of the public regarding the application. The proposed rezoning would permit a site-specific exemption to permit the construction of a funeral home and accessory dwelling units on the subject lands. Staff note that if passed, the applicant would need to determine the process for legally merging the 3 lots, as required, as part of the site plan control approval process. If the lots are not legally merged, the proposed development cannot proceed based on the current lot layout and zoning. Overall, staff are recommending that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment be passed.
Thank you. The planning coordinator will read out any correspondence received from government agencies and municipal staff.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, staff received confirmation from Bell, the municipal clerk, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and the Catholic District School Board that they have no concerns or comments on the application. We did receive comments from the Manager of Public Works, and they read as follows. Good morning. The only comment I would have for this proposal would be that they have to upgrade the sewer and water services to accommodate this kind of build. Other than that, the layout looks great.
Thank you. The planning coordinator will read out any correspondence received from members of the public.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, we did receive one comment from a member of the public, and it reads as follows. Hello, I am writing this regarding the rezoning on a property on Front Street from residential to commercial, the funeral home. And as a tax-paying citizen on 23 King Street, I oppose the rezoning to commercial for a funeral home as in 1, this is an older part of residential area, and having a funeral home in this area is extremely out of place. And 2, if they want to build a new place and build it by the car wash where it could be centrally located by the churches. So here is my written submission regarding the rezoning. I oppose it. So I do hope this gets submitted into the minutes of the meeting. I would like a reply on the decision that council concludes on this matter. Thank you, Violet Dubroy.
Thank you. The applicant's presentation. The applicant or a representative of the applicant, if present, may make a presentation to council. Is there an applicant who wishes to speak to? Could you please step forward and introduce yourself and use the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. It's just for the.
Hi there. My name is Jordan Olsher, and I am the current day-to-day manager and part owner of the Sioux Funeral Home. We provide care, support, and many different services to families of the recently deceased. On average, we serve around 200 families a year from 26 different Northern First Nations and Sioux. The Sioux Funeral Home itself has been serving the community and surrounding area for 70 plus years with multiple different owners along the way. The only thing that's remained the same all these years has been the structure, which was originally built as a house more than 100 years ago. There have been many additions and renovations in that time, but they all tie back into that same original structure. And the fact that the structure was built halfway on a cliff doesn't really help either. Our main lift system to get from the basement to the main floor was permanently condemned for being unsafe, with a new elevator system coming in at more than $100,000, with hundreds of thousands more that would have to be spent on updating the foundation, the structure, and everything else. Our building now is literally falling apart, and public safety is starting to become an issue. The only logical and cost-effective solution we found is to start from scratch. The new building would be completely modern, energy efficient, and accessible for everyone. It would all be on one level with the possibility of an apartment or two above the garage for employees. Our new parking lot would be able to handle most of the services we run, as opposed to what we have now, which is nothing but street parking for everybody. If you've ever driven by during service, you may have noticed all the cars lining up both sides of the street on the west end of Front Street, which pretty much clogs up for anybody that lives up on the hill. I completely understand that the funeral business itself makes a lot of people uneasy. I went and spoke to Violet today, and that was pretty much her son's main concern, was funeral homes creep them out. But for the most part, we are just another essential business that normally operates quietly between 9 and 5.
Thank you. Questions from members of council and members of the public, starting with members of council. Council. Councillor Costco.
Now, will the new funeral home have crematorium?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, just so everyone listening online can hear, the answer was that there will not be a crematorium in the funeral home.
Further questions, council? Seeing none, then we'll go to the public. Questions from members of the public. Members of the public are invited to speak to the application. The public can ask questions of clarification or seek background information, speak in support of the application, or speak in opposition to the application. All questions will be directed through the chair. It is requested that only one question be asked at a time. Please identify yourself before you ask your question so that you can be properly recorded in the minutes of the public meeting. Are there any members of the public present tonight who wish to speak?
Hi, my name's Kayla Newman.
Please
I
hold
live
the
on the corner of 20 and a half Front Street there, so just the intersection. And my neighbor just down the way lives at,
I'm
It's in that.
Emily Pelche, and I live at 6 Front Street. I own the apartment complex there.
so myself, between the spring and the dealership, there's approximately 26 houses on that block. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just a resident trying to just figure this out for myself. So I personally have been able to talk to 14 of that block, and 12 of those 14 have some sort of opinion and reason as to why they wouldn't want it in that location. So my first point is the size of the building, and again, I'm just going off of Google and what I can kind of find readily available. It actually seems like it's going to be a little bit smaller than the current building is, and I understand now from you that your building is falling apart. So that is a little bit different. But the size of the building is still seeming like it's going to be a little bit smaller. And the location of the funeral home on the corner of Front and Second is closer to the downtown core. It being in the current location is 450 meters to the Legion, and in the new proposed location it's 220 meters to Subway. The property value for the neighboring homes will likely decrease, as then it's going to be rezoned as a commercial area, and having homes that are closer to a commercial area would generally have a slower appreciation rate and would then have littler demand for resale. The increased activity in the poorly maintained roads, the collapsing and the backing up of the sewer lines and the orange and rusty water on that end of Front Street will only get worse. I've clarified that the project that is supposed to start in the next couple of weeks only goes up to the intersection of Second and Front and doesn't actually include Second to First, which is terrible. Concerns for the street parking, as well as there are parking spaces in the drawings, I just don't think it's going to be enough, and I do think that the overflow will still end up on the poorly maintained part of the road that isn't in the plans to be fixed with this project that's happening in the next coming weeks. And personally, this one kind of hits home for me. I don't really want to feel like my day-to-day activities in my backyard are going to be considered disrespectful by management or patrons of people at the funeral home. I don't want to feel like my personal space is affected, or my livelihood. Being that in my backyard, I can see the goings-on of a funeral procession from my backyard, and that as well leading funeral home, the procession through the downtown core, either being King Street or Front. Over there is a little bit more direct to the main cemetery. Sorry, I'm not good at public speaking, so I am definitely shaking. Your turn.
Fine, thank you.
I agree with all of
State your name again.
Oh, sorry, Emily Peltier at 6 Front Street. I agree with everything that she has said. My main concerns is that part of the road is being fixed, part of the sewer, but we're at the end of the sewer. So once we put all of that traffic right there with the new funeral home and the washrooms and the multiple people using that it's going to make our situation worse. I have to call the town frequently throughout the year to have it pumped because it does back up. So that's one of my main concerns, is that if that's going to be done, then we would appreciate that the street be completely redone to alleviate any of those problems for other homeowners down at our end. And also with it being on that back lane is very, very busy. It's very tight. And a lot of more traffic is going to be on that back lane. A lot of people walk their dogs down that lane, and a lot of people walk down there. So increasing the traffic down that back lane is a concern to me as well.
I actually just, sorry. Another point I actually want to make that I completely forgot about is the corner of Front Street and Second actually doesn't have a street light either. So halfway between Front and Second and halfway between Second and Third, there's actually a whole block worth of space. My house and my neighbors were quite dark. So it kind of feels like our end of Front Street has been forgotten about, and to just plunk a funeral home there without taking any of the, I guess, preventative measures to, I guess, maintain the residents and their livelihoods is kind of being swept. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes the public meeting regarding zoning bylaw amendment number Z07-2023. If any member of the public wishes to be notified of the decision of council in respect of the application, you must make a written request to the planning coordinator. Notice to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal must be filed with the planning coordinator no later than 20 days from the date the notice of the decision is circulated. The notice of appeal shall be sent to the attention of the planning coordinator, and it must include the following information: the reasons for the appeal and the fee as prescribed under the Ontario Land Tribunal Act in the amount of $1,100 payable by certified check to the Minister of Finance, Province of Ontario. Only individuals, corporations, or public bodies may appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal. An appeal may not be filed by an unincorporated association or group. A notice of appeal may be filed in the name of an individual who is a member of the association or group. And I take it we'll be going to option 2, as we have received opposing comments tonight. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, that is at council's discretion. If if council believes that the items that have been raised this evening can be addressed by the applicant, then potentially it could go back to staff. If council believes that the concerns are primarily related to municipal infrastructure, that may not directly impact the application itself.
So, council, we have 2 options. Option 1 is if there are no opposing comments or if they can be addressed, we proceed and move along. Or if we don't believe that, then we ask council, we direct staff to prepare a subsequent planning report for presentation to council at a subsequent council meeting. So I guess I could do it 2 ways. I could put option 1 to the table and see if it's, or do you have any further questions of the planning coordinator? Councillor Cosgrove.
Historically, if there is development happening, historically, if there is development happening and the infrastructure in the area doesn't support that development, would we not also need a plan from the Public Works Department to bring that infrastructure up to par so that that development can proceed?
I'll let staff answer that question. CAO.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes, that would have to be taken into consideration to make sure that the infrastructure can support the development.
And who would be responsible for those costs? Is that cost incurred by the municipality, or does the developer share with that cost? Because I do believe what these citizens have said, with the road being in very poor condition, we do know that the sewer's in poor condition and that this area does need some work done to it. And if you're going to put a big public business there, we do need to do some work to the infrastructure.
Correct. That's part of our asset management plan and how we develop our projects. Some take priority because of development, so that's something that staff would have to look at and bring back to council.
And council has been aware for many years that many places in town need upgrading, and staff are doing it according to the finances we have available and funding that's available from senior government. The project that was developed, that is underway, that will be underway this year, next year for 3rd Avenue and Front Street upgrades, has been on the books for many years and finally aligned with some funding that was available from senior government. No, this one is not. Okay, so we're going ahead with this on our own. It's a very expensive project, and actually this application just came in long after the plans for development for infrastructure for this year. I mean, this application has come to us quite recently. And as you know, infrastructure plans usually are years ahead, but not to say what you're saying is not accurate. Councillor Lego.
Yeah, at some point in the near future, could we get a report to council with sort of a price range to sort of fix the rest of from 2nd to 1st Avenue? I know it's sort of on a swamp down there because my grandmother used to live down there. So, but the road is atrocious. And if there's issues with lighting, we need to address that as well.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes, definitely. Our operations manager did provide comment saying that there would have to be upgrades to water and sewer services in that area. So we'll be following up and finding out exactly what needs to be done, because we have had a preliminary engineering on those pipes already. So,
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, I firmly believe that whenever we're making a major change in zoning that is really going to change the nature of the neighborhood, that there needs to be dialogue between the proposed applicant and the neighbors, and to see what the issues would be and to attempt to resolve them if they are resolvable. So I would, at this point, go for option 2 and to encourage that dialogue to occur between the the owners, proposed owners, sorry, have they bought the land yet? Or they have bought the land, and the neighbors, and try to sort out some of these difficulties that have been expressed.
Councillor Cassidy.
The three main concerns I hear were water, sewer, lighting, and some privacy for the residents. So 2 of those, I think, are in the municipality's wheelhouse. The other one with regards to privacy and kind of interaction with their neighboring parties, I believe the owners have already demonstrated that they're willing to work with their neighbors, by him alluding to that he did go meet with the neighbor that did submit the letter to have a discussion and to work with her. And I would hope that potentially if there are some privacy concerns that could be maybe worked out through a site plan with regards to some fencing or something that could be incorporated.
Further comments, council? Councillor Ball.
I actually lived by the funeral home down on Front, right across from it for 20 plus years. They were great neighbors. We were in a vibrant neighborhood, so there were times where there were, parties late into the night, and there was no issues. Never a complaint from them. Even as a child, I was in that area and biked around the funeral home. Once in a while, the door would open when someone passed, but overall, they were great neighbors. Thank you.
Councillor Lego.
For me, I would vote for option 1, but it'll be up to the municipality and council to keep on top of what's going on down there and looking into the near future to see what we can do to fix up that area if we're going to put another commercial building in there, and a large one at that. So, and then as Councillor Cassidy said, it would be incumbent upon the owners of that property to talk to the neighbors, to get out there and visit them and ease some of their concerns.
Councillor Cassidy.
I just want to add, like, I heard some of the comments about this being a forgotten section of town too. And probably it is one of the sections of town that you see the least activity in. I think this is good news for that area as well. It's some development, it's new things happening. And I just hope that this can kind of perpetuate some more to occur. And I think the right tenants are going in, and they're people that are willing to work with their neighbors and integrate well. So.
Further comments, council? So maybe clerk, can I put both options? So I'll put option 1 on the table first. That council receives the planning report dated July 19th, 2023, report number 2023-88, respecting zoning bylaw amendment number Z07-2023, and further, the council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 66-23, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 85-18, being a comprehensive zoning bylaw for the corporation of the municipality of Sioux as amended, Sioux Funeral Home, 18 and a half, 18 and 16 Front Street. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Carried. Plan of subdivision, official plan amendment. So that's the end of that section. This would go into bylaws tonight and be passed. Thank you. We have a second application on the books tonight. Plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment, Sturgeon River Road, Jam Developments Incorporated. The applicant is Jam Developments Incorporated. Introduction and overview. This public meeting is being held pursuant to Section 1715 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, to inform the public and to obtain their input with respect to a proposed amendment to the Municipality of Sioux official plan. The purpose of the official plan amendment numbers OP01-2023, subdivision plan amendment number SO2-2023, and zoning bylaw amendment number Z02-2023 is to allow Jam Development Incorporated to create a subdivision within the subject lands. The planning coordinator will confirm how notice was served to advertise this public meeting.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, notice was circulated to internal staff and external bodies by email. Notice was advertised in the Sioux Bulletin and on the municipal website and social media, and sent by mail to various agencies and property owners within 120 meters of the subject property lands. Signs were also posted at the subject lands. And I'll just take this moment to introduce our consultant. Jamie Robinson is on the line. He will be handling the rest of the application essentially. But he's one of our consultants with MHBC Planning out of Barrie. He works with Patrick, who you guys met last time.
Thank you. The planning consultant then will provide a summary of the application. Just a second, Jamie, we just need to address the volume. Try again?
Can you not hear me very well?
We now can, thank you.
You can? Okay, if you have any issues, just let me know. For some reason on Zoom, sometimes there's issues with my mic, but I can adjust this if necessary. The purpose of this application, there's an official plan amendment to plan a subdivision application and a zoning bylaw amendment application before council this evening. This is again a public meeting related to those applications. The subdivision itself is proposed to create 14 lots. 4 of those lots are located on the shoreline of Abrams Lake, and 10 of those lots are considered back lots. The proposed official plan amendment would provide for, is necessary because of the lot areas that are proposed for for some of the lots. The zoning bylaw amendment is necessary to recognize the proposed residential land use, whereas the existing zoning that applies to the land was not zoned for residential purposes specifically. We reviewed the applications in the context of the official plan for the municipality, as well as the zoning bylaw for the municipality, and as well as the provincial policy statement that lands are within the Drayton area. And following that review, and based on a review of the comments that have also been received by various commenting agencies, and those included Canada Post, Hydro One, KPDSB, MTO, from the municipality side, CAO, Clerk's Department of Economic Development, and as well as the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. We've recommended that council has a couple of options here, provided they're similar to the last application. If there's no comments provided in opposition or that require further review and analysis, then you have the option of approving the applications tonight, 3 applications. And if there are concerns with respect to more research required from any comments that are provided, we could take that information back, conduct that additional research and analysis, and then come back with a further recommendation for council's consideration. With respect to the planned subdivision application, there's a number of conditions that are included. These conditions in subdivision application are similar to what you'd see in a consent application. What you'd be doing tonight, if you approve the subdivision, would be providing draft plan approval, which is akin to provisional consent approval. So in principle, the development would be approved, but there's a few conditions that have to be satisfied. Those conditions relate to a number of different matters. Many of them result from comments that are provided by the various commenting agencies. Much of those, or most of those conditions, are dealt with through subdivision agreement. So once a subdivision agreement is executed, basically the majority of those conditions are complied with or completed through that execution of the subdivision agreement. So that really provides an overview of the development proposal. There's an existing road in place. It's a pretty standard proposal. You've got some shoreline development and some backlot development. There's not a lot in the way of landowners that are in proximity to the site that are impacted. Technical studies that have been completed in support of the proposal do provide for justification, and that really provides an overview of the application. So when we get to the point of questions, if there's any questions, I can do my best to try to answer this for you. Thank you.
Thank you. The planning consultant or coordinator will read out any correspondence received from government agencies and municipal staff.
So I've got, there's comments that have been provided, I listed Canada Post, Hydro One, KPESB, MTO, CIO, Clerk, Economic Development, and Municipal Affairs and Housing. There's quite a few, but there's a lot to read there. I don't suggest that it's necessary to read them all from a statutory perspective. It's not required. What I can tell you is that the recommendations, comments that were provided have been addressed through the conditions of provisional consent that have been outlined. So I think we'd be here quite a while if I were to read all those comments for you. So it's up to you if you want to hear it specifically, but or I can provide a summary if you like. It's I'm in your hands in that regard.
If you can provide a summary, that would be fine. And I think that's fine. And the assurance that you could say again that the conditions have been met or are being met through the provisions.
Yeah, so just in terms of summary, the Canada Post is providing comments that have it that mail service is available, boxes are required. Hydro One indicated that they can service the development. They indicated that the pole service is sufficient size to also accommodate Bell or I believe it's Shaw service provider related to telephone. MTO had no real concerns with respect to the proposed development, and then Municipal Affairs and Housing provided comments that indicate that the proposed development would be consistent with the provincial policy statement, but then also just recommend that council needs to be satisfied that the proposal conforms with their official plan. So those are sort of the main comments that we provided with respect to the application.
Thank you. I think you said Hydro One. Was it Sioux Hydro that actually is the?
Is that the most response that Carol confirmed?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, we circulate to both. Hydro One is required to be circulated based on legislative requirements, but our local authority, which is Sioux Hydro, was also circulated. So they both reviewed the applications, provided comments.
Anything further on correspondence from government agencies and municipal staff?
Not from my worship.
Okay, so we'll see if council can have any questions when they ask questions on that. Correspondence from members of the public. The planning consultant will read out any correspondence received from members of the public. Planning consultant, any correspondence from members of the public?
Not that I'm aware of.
I can also confirm that we did not receive any comments from any members of the public for this application.
Thank you. Applicant's presentation. The applicant or a representative is invited to speak to the application. Is there a representative who wishes to speak tonight? Please step forward and state your name.
Daryl Morgan, President of Jam Developments. I do have a few concerns that I wanted to address to council as per the conditions that were outlined in the draft approval that's presented to you. Couple of the comments that I have, item number 24 makes reference to communications and telecommunication internet service providers shall confirm that satisfactory arrangements and otherwise. I won't read the whole thing, but basically what there's section 24 and then it goes on to items 32 through 36, which makes reference to Bell Canada or other wired service providers. I guess my ask here is that this is 2023 and wired service communications really are irrelevant at this day and age, and forcing me to meet the standards that Bell Canada or Shaw put forward, especially after my experience the last 2 days with Shaw Rogers, I think is totally irrelevant in this day and age. And the fact that we have wireless communications either through Starlink or cellular service, which that area is serviced by Cell, is satisfactory for that area. I think from my perspective, making sure that the property owners or the potential purchasers would be aware that there is not wired services available is adequate. I did talk with the planning department and asked that this be removed previously through my consultant and myself. That item is still here, and I'm asking council that they consider removing item number 24, as well as items 32 through 36, which has to do with Bell Canada and any other communications providers, given the fact that there are other options that don't pertain to wired services. Having said that, when we designed the power line, because I kind of went a step ahead of myself, I've already designed the power line for Sioux Lookout Hydro, and there is room on the poles that are going to be constructed there for that. It was never my intention to bring wired services into these lots, though. That's the Bell Canada piece. Item number 30 and 31 in the conditions makes reference to the school boards, both the Catholic School Board as well as the Keewatin Patricia District School Board. It's not a hill for me to die on. I just don't understand why myself, as doing a small subdivision, have to go through the process of getting approval from the two school boards when that should be addressed by the municipality's growth strategy and the official plan that is done every 10 years. But that's up to you guys to decide. I think it should be the responsibility of the municipality when you guys establish what your growth projections are. If this was a 150 lot subdivision, maybe that's a different situation, and maybe the municipality needs to have different thresholds for different size developments that come forward. Canada Post, that was one that was a bit of a surprise. We just received that through the planning office on Friday. I'm not too sure. I think Canada Post was a little late to the dance for this one, but it wasn't on the last round of conditions that would have been presented to you guys last month, and now it's here today. Again, I don't believe Canada Post is going to require me to put mailboxes down at the end of Sturgeon because they don't service that entire area. It's done through Drayton Cash and Carry, and that's where the community mailboxes are, either there or at Lincoln Park. If I have to deal with that one, I guess I have to deal with it, but I think Canada Post as the service provider should address that themselves. Other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward, and I would like to thank Jody and Kristen for working with me through this, along with our planning consultant that we used on this project.
Thank you. Would this be an appropriate time for I'm not sure, some of these discussion about conditions? Can staff comment on this at this time?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I don't see why not. Jamie?
Sure, I can just provide a little bit of background information. So firstly, with respect to the conditions that Greg is having concern with, I guess I'll just start by saying it's entirely up to council what they include as conditions or don't include conditions, what conditions are included to begin with. The conditions that are recommended by yourselves and by staff, first number 24 that the applicants identified as concerns with relates to telecommunications infrastructure and wired service. This is a standard type condition that we would see in Sioux Lookout or in any other municipality across the province related to a plan of subdivision application. The reason, one of the sort of big picture planning reasons for including these sorts of conditions is to ensure that development is comprehensively planned and completed in a comprehensive manner. So it is a form of utility or infrastructure. Provide ensure that infrastructure and utilities are available. That's one of the requirements of the plan. Secondly, if council decides not to include this condition, the developer does not install the utilities, it's possible that the owners are, if they aren't choosing a wireless service or a wireless service, for example, then it would be up to the owners to install the infrastructure, which would tend to happen in piecemeal fashion. So it's the providers themselves that would rather it be completed up front and in sort of orderly and consistent fashion. And we feel from that perspective that it is more in the public interest to have these sorts of things completed up front and at the start of development, and that's why there's standard condition everywhere. So, big picture, it's really public interest consideration for that telecommunications construction. From the school board condition at 31 is a standard condition you will see basically anywhere in the province. It's basically saying that if the schools are over capacity in an area, that children may be bused to the next available school. So, have I ever seen that actually happen? I'm not aware of it. However, this is a standard warning clause that school boards require on every planned subdivision application or every subdivision agreement. And in accordance with the Planning Act, we are required to circulate to school boards. And this is the comment that they have come back with, and they recommend that council include. So it's just simply a warning clause that goes into the subdivision agreement. There's no real cost implications or anything to that effect. It's just a standard. Sections 32 to 36 are then just related to the Bell Canada piece, so they sort of go in line with condition 24. So I have no further comments on those beyond that you provided. I think those are the only conditions that were identified as proponents.
There was talk about Canada Post.
Oh, sorry, Canada Post. So they did provide comments at the end of June, which were forwarded to the applicant's consultant. I understand that they did get forwarded to the proponent when they were sent to his consultant, but nonetheless they were provided. The Canada Post comments are again standard. Canada Post is requiring a box service to be provided, so that a box of community mailbox would have to be developed, and that's what they use for their service. That is a completely standard clause in almost all subdivisions or in all draft plan approvals that I've been involved in through the province. So
Sorry, we just lost volume there, Jamie.
Oh, sorry. Canada Post is a commenting agency. We are required to circulate them in accordance with the Planning Act, and the comments that they've provided are what have been included in the condition. So, what would typically occur is that through the completion of the subdivision agreement and the detailed plans, there'd be a mailbox location identified, and it would have to be installed. So, it's a pretty standard thing that if you're going to create houses, going to create lots, you need to be able to appropriately provide those services and mail services.
Thank you. We move on now to questions from members of council. Questions can be directed to the planning consultant through the chair. Councillor Lego.
As Mr. Morgan indicated, Canada Post does not even service that area, so I don't know. It may be just a standard response from Canada Post, but they don't do business down in that area. Lincoln Park and Drayton Carey, I think it would be up to Canada Post to put extra mailboxes. I'm sure the proponent of the development can talk to Canada Post and get that done, but for me, that it makes no sense that they're making a comment that you need to have post office or boxes there and they're not servicing that area. So whether that stays or goes, it'll be up to council, but
No, I would think that's, I don't disagree with what you said, but it's just, I think it's up to the developer to sort that out with Canada Post and get it clarified and move on, and the condition is satisfied that there's a touchstone. Councillor Consco.
I had some of the same concerns as Mr. Morgan, like the Northwest School Board. What it's referring to is neighborhood schools, which happens in large cities where one school is over capacity and certain members of the public are required to be bused to other schools. We don't have neighborhood schools. We have one school for each board, and the next closest school would be Dryden or Savant Lake, and Savant Lake is a one-room school with one teacher, so it would be Dryden. So this clause is completely non-applicable to our community, and to ask Mr. Morgan then to go to the school board and get a letter to say that he's complying to the situation that doesn't exist is not, I don't think that's reasonable. So I think that clause needs to be removed. The Quayton Patricia District School clause needs to be removed. And the other situation with Bell Canada that you might not be aware of is if you live on the rural and you're using Bell Canada lines for internet, they are old lines. There is no fiber, there is no 5G. There is an internet service that functions at a speed of 0.1. So therefore, most people who live on the rural, like I have 2 home businesses and I cannot function in my home on a Bell Canada internet service. I had to upgrade to Starlink. So I don't think that people in Sioux Lookout at the end of Sturgeon River Road on old Bell Canada lines would want that service. And I don't think it's reasonable to expect Bell Canada to go in and service Sturgeon River Road with the length of it with fiber. They're not going to do it. We've asked on our road many, many times, and they will not do it. So I think that Mr. Morgan is right. This is 2023. There's other sources available. Starlink is no longer cost prohibitive. It is now $199 to install in your house. It's simple to install. It's a fantastic service. Most people in the rural are using it. Same with cell service. I don't think there's a lot of people using hard phone lines anymore. Most people are using cell service. And with the post office ones, I don't think that Mr. Morgan needs to put a display map up in his sales office for 14 lots that it's going to take him several years to sell. He's not going to have a sales office. So I think that clause number 43 is redundant. And I don't think that he needs to advise his homeowners of what lot post office box they're going to get, because you have to go to the post office anyways to register, and they probably aren't going to give them, sometimes it's not the same box number, it changes all the time. And constantly they're reassigning them. So I think all of those clauses need to be removed to simplify this process. And like Mr. Morgan having to go to both the Catholic School Board and the Northwest School Board to say he's compliant with a situation that doesn't exist is just, I don't think it's necessary.
Councillor Van Breda.
Yeah, also talking about the Bell and Shaw Wi-Fi, I mean, nobody really, I know that when I bought my home in Hudson, that the speed was 10 megabytes per second, that's pretty slow. Like, you can't do Netflix and then go on your own personal a computer. So I ripped my Bell lines out of my house because I thought that they were just ugly. But Bell does have satellite Wi-Fi, which is the same amount of money as Starlink. So, and it's pretty fast. It works just as good. And I don't need to have ugly wires coming in and out of my house too. So I feel like if you are buying a brand new house, I feel like you could probably afford the nice satellite Wi-Fi with it. Maybe that's just me though. So.
Yeah, and to be clear, we're not promoting any particular company.
No. I'm just saying that
Starlink or whoever.
you can afford the satellite Wi-Fi, which is more money, but I feel like it's not that cost prohibitive.
Further comments, questions, Council? Councillor Simpson.
Sorry. Oh. I just wonder if Jamie could elaborate a little bit more about the connection between number 24 and number 32 to 36 regarding Bell. I really don't understand the technology as previous councillors do. Myself, I do have a landline in my remote place because the hydro goes off quite frequently, and if you may not be able to, and your cell service is not good in the outlying areas. I do see that there are advantages to keeping a landline, in the remote part of Sioux Lookout, and when your hydro goes off, which has happened to me many times. And so I wonder if, Jamie, you could elaborate a little bit more on that.
There's not a whole lot more I can add. I guess sort of 2 points is that from a safety perspective and 911 numbering and provision of services, that's one reason for a landline. Like, I don't have a landline anymore personally, so I can tell you that. But that's one reason. And just like in general, all of these conditions, these are conditions that the utilities or agencies have recommended for inclusion or asked for inclusion. There is a potential risk to the municipality if they don't include these conditions that the agency could appeal. Is that risk low? I think it's probably low, but there is a risk there. And most of these conditions, I think, are simply satisfied through subdivision. The Bell Canada one's a little bit different because they would have to install some infrastructure, some wires, but the majority of the other conditions are simply satisfied through the subdivision agreement through the process. So, are some of them unnecessary potentially? Maybe, but they've been asked for and they can be simply satisfied. So just keep that in mind. I would suggest to council when you're making your decision on them is that it's all really in the name of sort of orderly development in the big picture here. And if they're easily satisfied, there's really no specific harm in including. So I'm not trying to be an advocate for the agencies. I'm just letting them know that the potential risks that are involved.
I think my question was going to be twofold. One is, what is the liability if council decides to waive these conditions, if that's the right terminology, waive the conditions, what is the liability for the municipality? Can a homeowner at some stage say, I need a landline, and it's up to you to pay for the cost of it? Once we assume, because eventually we assume this subdivision. The developer develops it, sells it, and then we assume it. What's our liability at that stage?
Yes, Your Worship. I don't believe there's any liability related to servicing provisions or utility provisions. What you assume is the road. Prior to assuming and which is there currently. But as far as I think your only sort of risk I would suggest would relate to a potential appeal. Let's say Bell Canada provided comments and they're not satisfied that you've appropriately addressed their comments. They have the ability to appeal the application to the OLT. Similarly, if Canada Post is not supportive that you haven't included their conditions, for example, they have the ability to appeal. So I think you want to just weigh those risks. I think I would suggest a little bit. And again, I've said it a number of times, but these are all standard conditions. If council has issues with their conditions, then maybe you don't want to make a decision on this tonight and you want to write these approval authorities back and suggest that they remove these conditions, that they not be included in these conditions, and explain your situation that they shouldn't provide these conditions in future applications. So like you have that option too. I'm just laying it all out there for you. But I'm not sure that removing conditions necessarily that are recommended by approval authorities is entirely, can you do it at the council table? Certainly you can. Is it normal practice? I would suggest that it is.
If the, sorry, Councilor Simpson, I'll just carry on with my thought, thanks. For example, if the condition for Bell Canada was waived, if it's not waived, let's put it that way, then is it up to the developer to deal with Bell Canada and determine whether or not he has to, there's no compulsion to extend the service, the utility, is there?
No, you're correct. It's up to the applicant to deal with them and satisfy Bell that they've been appropriately dealt with, and that means that they have to install the infrastructure, so be it. If it means that they're satisfied they don't need infrastructure, then the conditions can be signed off.
And the risk of delay of, if there was an appeal, if we waive and the risk of delay, the risk really, as much, we would like to see, the municipality would like to see this proceed forthwith and yesterday, whatever, but the risk of delay really is then the developer's risk as much as ours, right?
Yes, that's correct.
More so the developers, because he's investing money that is now delayed. Okay, sorry, Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask that. What is the risk to the contractor in terms of time and delay and in terms of costs if Bell says, yes, you have to put these lines in? Does Bell cover the cost, or does the contractor? Those are the...
Can I ask the developer, who covers the cost of the Bell extension, Mr. Morgan?
I believe they would place that on me as the proponent. I don't know that for a fact, but I will say, and I think I mentioned it earlier, that when we designed the line for Sioux Hydro, there is room on the pole line for the Bell Canada services, if that was designed or determined that it was required. It was never my intention to put wired services in there as part of this, and through the sale process, make sure that every purchaser is aware of that.
Yeah,
That would be my take on it. I guess the beef I have with it, if some of this stuff is a little bit just administrative and bureaucratic, and it's just time delays. And I understand what you're saying, that Bell could appeal it, but I think council needs to recognize, and the consultant needs to recognize, that this is a rural subdivision, it's not an urban subdivision, and it's different doing a rural subdivision than an urban subdivision, and I think it's different from Barrie than it is in Sioux. And that's my statement. I think it's just a reality of this. I live in the rural, I've got 3 properties in the rural, not one of them have a wired landline. And I think, you know, as Mrs. Costco has pointed out, the reality of internet service in the rural on a wired connection is extremely poor in this community, and there are other options that don't include those services.
Yeah, I would just reiterate the planning consultant's comment that this is part of how we do orderly subdivision development. The conditions are there. I would ask if this were, let's say, a 50-lot subdivision going into Bigwood, the Bigwood property where we're extending, would these similar conditions would apply, and in all likelihood, Bell Canada would provide line to it. Is that right? Who can I ask here? Planning consultant. So Bigwood is an area, you're familiar with Bigwood? Jim?
Yeah.
So let's say part of that development, as well as commercial and whatever, there's a 50-lot subdivision. Would you anticipate that there would be, Bell Canada would proceed with wire development there?
Again, I would suspect they would. I can't speak for them, obviously, but I would suspect that they would, yes.
Interesting. Yeah, Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, one more question about the school. Would the school boards not need to know, in terms of the school bus service, would they not need to be aware or be planning for that?
Planning consultant? Is school busing, the bus service and availability, is that part of the consultation with the school boards?
Not through the subdivision process specifically. That's more of a registration issue when someone's registering for a school of school bus services. Mm-hmm. That's my understanding. We don't really deal with the school busing through the planning process.
I guess, to me, part of the consultation with the school board, I mean, I would think that it's more or less a checkbox. If the school boards were objecting to any of this, we would have serious objections. But I think, in a way, the school board, just the knowledge that our community is growing and planning for the future would be part of it. If we didn't, through the development of subdivisions, report to school boards, they can't rely on Statistics Canada in a sense, because that's every there's a 10 years of census and every 5 years an update, and as we know, we shrunk as a community for 15 years before we finally grew 5 years ago. So it's a way, to me, it's a touchstone for the school boards to know that Sioux Lookout is growing, and maybe they should look into it for their planning purposes. We are on still questions from members of council, I think. So further questions, council? Councillor Costco.
Remove some of these clauses? Like, I'd like to see, like you said, you know, it's a way for the school boards to plan, but when we're talking about neighborhood schools, this clause is not applicable until that second neighborhood school is built. Since we don't have the second neighborhood school, there's no way of shuffling students between the two schools because it doesn't exist. So then you're asking Mr. Morgan to go to the school board and say, I've been compliant with a situation that doesn't exist. So the school board is probably not even going to want to write him the letter because they're going to say, well, that doesn't even happen. It doesn't exist. We don't have two schools. So there is no shuffling of students between schools based on enrollment. It doesn't happen. We have one school, and the public school has to take every single student in Sioux Lookout, and the Catholic school has the right to say, go to the public school. So I'd like to see these clauses, I would like to definitely see clause 30 and clause 31 removed.
I'm going to, can I go to the clerk, CIO, to, what's the process here? I think if every subdivision agreement that comes to council, if we're starting to go through conditions, I think we're in a bad way. I think that will delay the process. But council has the approval to waive conditions, correct? I think that's what was outlined. So, Mr. Clerk, what would the process be specifically in this matter?
Through Mayor Lawrence, in this sense, council would have to look at amending. So essentially, the amendments to the conditions would need to happen at this meeting, and that would have to be documented somehow, and then the option one could proceed. If, that's assuming there's no comments or questions from the public. We haven't gotten to that point in the meeting yet. So our planning consultant, I think, provided a fairly low risk, sort of middle of the road solution to some of this by potentially having the municipality reach out to these few clauses, the post office, the school boards, and Bell Canada and Shaw, discuss the concerns, see if they would be willing to grant relief from the conditions that they've requested now, and then bring this back in a month's time. That would be one way for council to satisfy itself that those conditions have either been removed or aren't pertinent anymore. That would be, if I could, the safest course of action for council to take, because then that would negate the possibility of appeals or other issues developing down the road with respect to those specific concerns.
Okay, so you've identified a path forward here, which would, of course, now require further work from you in terms of a motion. I would get, or is it just direction to staff, or?
It would be option two, because of comments raised, it goes back to staff to deal with.
And deal with that as direction, okay. Councillor Costco.
Does Mr. Morgan want that? Like, because I'm believing he wants this approved today. So if we make changes and it creates a delay, do you want that?
No, I don't want a delay. I had it removed from the agenda last month so that we could work through some of these. It went back to the staff and back to the planning consultant. The planning consultant sent it back with the same conditions included, which I still don't agree with. I can accept them if that's what you're asking. I just don't think it's right? If it doesn't make sense, why are we still doing it? That's my point. And I don't want it delayed. If you're going to come back and say that stays, well, then I have to accept what you're putting forward. We tried to go through it over the last 4 weeks prior to the last meeting, which I sat in on that call, and we're still back at the table with the same topics that haven't been removed. And so we asked for it to be removed last time because I didn't feel that this was the table for it to be addressed at, where we shouldn't go through every individual condition, as you just said, Your Worship. But now I'm asking for that consideration because it didn't get dealt with by the planning consultant after our request from my planning consultant, who you guys know, Jeff Port, is the one that's addressed this on my behalf. And I think he's pretty well respected and knows what he's talking about. So here I am.
I think our planning consultant is too, so let's not, thank you. Councillor Legger, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I think what the clerk has indicated is a course of action. Mr. Morgan does not want this delayed anymore. I think we need to pass this, and then staff needs to contact all these agencies and let them know the reality of what's going on. So post office, why is that in there? Why did you send this request when you know you don't service that area? Landline issues, Bell needs to be contacted. School board, why is this clause, why are you asking for this when we don't have another school to transport children to? So we need to be proactive on this. Unfortunately, to pass it, you're gonna have to deal with these conditions right now. And then we're gonna have, as staff, is gonna have to address these concerns to all these agencies.
CBO.
I just would like, through Mayor Lawrence, just in regards, so we're at the draft plan of subdivision stage now. There's still the actual subdivision agreement. And I believe there's room or time available to us to discuss these, I guess, conditions in regards to the final actual subdivision agreement. I don't know if Jamie can speak to that, if there's still opportunity to debate these things internally, like where we reach out to these organizations and make these determinations of how we can remove them without putting any risk on the municipality.
Jamie?
No, that's accurate. What the conditions generally say is that these are requirements to be included in the subdivision, or these are requirements to be included in, or there needs to be a clause in the subdivision agreement that these are to be included as warning clauses, for example, in purchase and sale agreement. So yeah, that all is to be worked out.
Councillor Lego.
So if I'm hearing this correct, we could pass this tonight and you could still deal with some of these issues moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I've said that, yes. I've mentioned that a few times, that we can work through these matters, that it gives the applicant time to work with the utility providers, the commenting agencies to address his concerns. And I can't stress it enough, like, these aren't matters that are being brought up by myself or by the municipality. These are agency comments that we're simply performing a clerical exercise and putting them into the subdivision agreement because that's the standard practice. And so the responsibility to deal with these agencies isn't on the municipality, it's on the applicant, and it's on the developer to deal with these agencies if they're not appropriate, if they feel they're not appropriate. So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Clerk?
Through Mayor Lawrence, and also to echo the comments that Patrick Towns made last month, that the intent with bringing forward draft conditions was to expedite this process. This could all have waited until the subdivision agreement started to be addressed, and then this would all come out like in a month's time or 2 months' time from now. So I think it's important that council understand that putting these draft conditions in at this stage was done to expedite the process so that the developer wouldn't be surprised when he got to the stage of the actual draft subdivision agreement. So with respect to timelines and moving things forward in an expeditious way, I think it's important that council understand that our staff and planning consultant actually did a very good job in that respect. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Clerk. So my position is I think that I would like to see this approved tonight. And as Councillor Lego, I think, has suggested, that our staff continue to work with the developer and expeditiously as they can, talk to these agencies and resolve matters. And then as it goes to this is the draft plan of approval, before it goes to the final plan of approval, they would be resolved. I think it's a slippery slope to start waiving standard conditions. And I agree with the developer, and some of these things, maybe they're out of date or not appropriate for Sioux Lookout. But I think if we start higgledy-piggledy picking at these things at the council table, every time there's a plan of subdivision comes along, I think we need to, as a municipality, and maybe staff can look at this and deal with the agencies in a sort of a broad way, so that these things, the agencies deal with us better for the next development. Councillor Timpson.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be, this is probably the first time we've actually had to deal with subdivision that's more isolated from the town, and we're going to have to deal with these because there's going to be others, maybe even farther away than Sturgeon River Road. What would happen if we decided just to waive them now, but it's only the draft, so could we just waive them and see what happens?
Well, I think the advice we're getting from our professional staff and planning consultants is be very cautious about waiving them, and that the implications of not waiving them are not that burdensome. Councillor Costco.
I think that some of the agencies are located in much larger centers than are located in the north. They're not necessarily aware what happens in the north. I mean, how many of us have had calls from Bell Canada trying to sell us 5G fiber optic service, which we don't have the infrastructure to have. And then when you explain that to them, they'll go back and check and come back, oh, you're right. So I believe that this, like when you've contacted these things or these canned comments, they're designed for larger centers than ours that are not located in the north, and necessarily they may not even realize that they don't have the infrastructure to offer what you're requiring the developer to offer.
Councillor Bowen.
I'm in favor of option one. Like Councillor Timpson just mentioned, this doesn't come across our table very often. I don't think we're not building subdivisions on a consistent basis. We can learn from this, and certain parts will be kind of like a template with the schools and the Bell, and we'll know for the next developer, we'll have those answers when they say, well, what about Bell? Do they pay for it? Do I pay for it? What does the school want? So yeah, once again, I'm in favor of option one.
Councillor Timpson.
Just one more clarification. You say it's required rather it's a standard requirement in all these plans. So why would we have to go to the agencies, Shaw and Bell and so on, and talk to them? It's not their decision. This is a policy from the province. So why would we going to Bell and say, do you mind if we don't install your poles in your line in our area, when it's really not their decision? It's the province's, is it not? Like, why would they be appealing when it's really not their business?
Planning consultant.
Your Worship, they have to get, it's the Planning Act that prescribes that the decision makers, so what the Planning Act does is it outlines requirements for decision makers to consider. And it also outlines requirements for circulation, that the decision maker is bound to circulate these agencies. So they could appeal. So the agencies provide comments. We also have to circulate them the notice of decision, which includes the conditions. They could look at that and say, well, you didn't listen to us, we're going to appeal. And then you'd have a fight at the tribunal about whether or not it's appropriate or not. So that's effectively how it would work, hopefully. That explains.
So this actually could, if we did do that, just waive them now, I mean, it could extend it even further if we're appealed, so, yeah.
I think the safest way forward for both the municipality and the developer is that we approve option one, and the developer working with staff gets on with satisfying the conditions, and I don't think that these ones that are here are burdensome. I think they will be satisfied quite readily. Mr. Morgan.
Can I make one more comment that might be helpful, Your Worship? Is just to be also is that the approval authority, which is you folks, have the ability at any time after the decision is made of draft approval prior to the registration of the plan to add any condition or any conditions. So
Sorry, to be clear,
through
sorry,
this back in,
the audio was a bit, we have the,
oh, sorry.
to add or delete, is that what you said?
Yeah, you have the ability to change or remove or add any condition prior to the registration. So if for example something happens and you want to add a condition, you can do that prior to the lots being registered. If you want to remove a condition based on what happens with these agencies, you could remove the condition. Usually you just say, well, sign that it's satisfied. You actually have to go through the process to remove it, but the legislation act allows you to do that. So I guess what I'm getting at is this isn't on can necessarily. If some things come to light through the applicant's negotiations or discussions with the utilities, that you do have the ability to change conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, you had a comment.
I understand that what you want to do is approve it, but there is certain conditions in here that have very specific requirements for me to provide wireline communication, right? Like it says clearly in number 36 that the owner must confirm that there's sufficient wireline communication, telecommunication infrastructure available. I don't plan to run wireline in there though. And so why am I being instructed to confirm that that's there when it's not going to be there? So, and again, we tried to address these conditions prior to this meeting. I don't want to waste any more of your time.
CDO or planning consultant, I'm perhaps misunderstood. I thought that, I didn't realize that it was they were being compelled to provide wireline communication.
So condition 24 says that the communication, telecommunication, internet service provider shall confirm that satisfactory arrangements that financial and otherwise have been made with them for any facility servicing this draft plan subdivision which are required by the municipality to be installed underground or above ground. Copy of such confirmation shall be forwarded to the municipality. And then 32 says the municipality recognizes that there are a number of communication providers in the area. Conditions 32 to 36 were provided by Bell Canada, following circulation of the proposed development. And then 33 says the owner acknowledges and agrees to convey easements as deemed necessary by Bell Canada to service the development. The owner further agrees and acknowledges to convey such easements at no cost to Bell Canada. So there could be a cost in providing easements. So the survey costs of them, the preparation of a reference plan, and providing these easements to the owner. 34 says the owner agrees that should any conflict arise with Bell Canada and its facilities with respect to when the current and valid easement exists within the subject area, the owner shall be responsible for the relocation of any such facilities at their cost. So there could be requirements by the owner to relocate facilities if that's the case. I don't know. That's figured out through the detailed design process. And it says the owner is advised to contact Bell Canada and it gives the contact during the detailed utility design scheme to confirm the provision of communication infrastructure needed to service the development. So 35. So we don't know what's specifically necessary to service the development because the detailed design hasn't been done. It could come out that they're not going to service the development and they don't need to do anything and this condition is satisfied. It could come out that they have to provide wired service to it and then it goes on to say the owner is hereby advised that prior to commencing any work within the plan, the owner must confirm that sufficient wireline communication, telecommunication infrastructure is currently available within the proposed development to provide telecommunication service to the proposed development. In the event such infrastructure is not available, the owner is hereby advised the owner may be required to pay for such connection and or extension of the existing telecommunication infrastructure. So it said they may have to extend it or they may have to provide for the connections to it. Doesn't say they have to, it says they may have to. So that's still to be determined. So I can't really tell you what's necessary to be done because the design is or if it needs to.
So if we approve it tonight, the owner deals with, I wouldn't like it left that the developer is compelled to provide wired service because one of these agencies says we want to service that site. I think that should be the developer's risk. If he wants to sell lots and just say, you don't have wire development, you never will unless you pay for it yourself, that's fine. That's the developer's risk. And I'm fine with that. I just don't, should we be leaving, is there still the option to? Go ahead.
If I may, I think you really have two options here. One option is to stay. And the applicant said that he deferred this a month so this could be dealt with. Well, it hasn't been dealt with. It's not the municipality's responsibility. It's the developer's responsibility to deal with Bell Canada. So I think your option is defer this until the owner's dealt with Bell Canada and either has these conditions removed or maintained. Your other option is to approve with these conditions, and through the fulfillment of the conditions and through the completion of the development and the registration process, either the infrastructure has to be installed or doesn't have to be installed, depending on what happens with those discussions with Bell Canada at that time. So I think, to me, those are your really only two options with respect to this. Do you have a third option, just to delete them all? Certainly do, but I would recommend. If you're unclear, then I think you defer and let the owner discuss this with Bell and decide whether it's necessary. Like, these are things that are done typically at detailed design. That's what's referenced in these conditions.
If we took option 2 and approve it, and the developer goes ahead, if the developer is having problems and we agree with him at some stage that we don't think you should have to provide wired development, we can delete that condition?
You can, yeah. You can change conditions up till any point prior to registration.
Okay. Council?
Yeah. I'm just curious to know from Mr. Morgan which of the options you would prefer.
Well,
I've made it clear. I asked for those to be deleted out of there, and if council decides not to, then that's their prerogative.
yeah. We have to decide what condition our condition is in, I guess. Councilor Costa.
How does Bell Canada have so much power that they have the right to say to a developer for a service that they don't want, and they're probably their people who are purchasing the product don't want, but yet they're at the mercy of Bell Canada to move forward? Like, how did one business get so much power in a small town when they're offering, less than premium service in that area, and yet they can hold a developer hostage that they have to do this or else? Like, how did they get that much power?
I don't know.
I can answer that question, Your Worship.
Yeah, go ahead.
So under section 5124 of the Planning Act, it prescribes what matters regard. So what it said, in considering a draft plan of subdivision, regard shall be had of another matter. The health, safety, convenience, accessibility for persons with disabilities, and welfare, present, future inhabitants of the municipality, and 2. And then it lists a number of things. It's A through M. And item I says, so municipality would have regard to. I says the adequacy of utilities and municipal services. And in this area, the utility provider for telephone is a utility, so it recognizes it's a utility, and Bell Canada is the provider. So that's why we get circulated on these things. Similarly, Enbridge, if you're near natural gas, it could be gas, it could be Enbridge, depending on who that service provider is. So those are all captured under that umbrella term. So it's in the Planning Act. It's something we have to have regard to. So that's why, like, we're not making this up. That's where it comes from.
All right, thank you. I think we'll move ahead, and when we get to the motions. Councillor
I was just going to make one more comment. Mr. Morgan says he would like to see it deleted, and the consequences of that would be it could delay the thing even further, correct? And would it cost the municipality any money? I mean, what is the risk if we just did delete it and let things go, and if move forward, and if it did delay it further, then what? That's my concern, is that if it could just delay you even further than going one of these routes, options, one or two.
Councillor Lego.
I would agree to delete the wired service part and get moving on with the next stages of the development plan.
Councillor Cassidy.
I would agree to delete the wired service stuff as well. I think the other thing is it's still a draft. We delete it. If someone at Bell throws a stink, then we can always add it back and work with there. It can go the other way too. It's now, I see it as, I think you asked how a company gets so much power. I think it's kind of the fruitful work of lobbyists, to be honest. And it hasn't changed. It's not keeping up with the times. I think we have developers here. We should try and work with them. And if something comes of it, we can deal with it. But I'm okay to remove that.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, just for clarification, I'm reading these conditions. I don't see the term wired service in here anywhere. It's in 36. Okay, but we're not going to delete the requirement for a potential easement. No, we're going to remove clause 36. Only 36, so not 34, 33, or 35.
Just the wired service part.
And, okay, so that's, the problem when we start picking apart things like this is that if we take 36 out, then 33, 34, and 35 may not be enforceable. That's part of the issue. So I think council either has to decide that we're going to have regard to Bell's requests, and that process goes through, and if the developer can convince Bell that it's not required, that the service that Bell offers in this region is subpar, and that for them to require this is crazy, I think it's a pretty fair argument. But if we remove it, we'll have to remove the section in its entirety, and then we're deleting our ability to require easements for these types of services in the future, and so on and so forth. I can tell council this corporation has gone to court before regarding Bell and Hydro easements, because these matters were not dealt with appropriately in the subdivision agreement, and we ended up in court over it. So these things do happen. The other thing to keep in mind is that we're talking about services as they are now, like all developments. They are here for 25, 30, 40, 50 years. That's not to say that Bell isn't going to bring fiber into Sioux Lookout, or that our population growth isn't going to require a mailbox outlet down there, because I know at Drayton, the owner of Drayton has already convinced Canada Post to remove some of the mailboxes from there because it was too busy for her parking lot. I don't know where they're going, but stuff is happening with that right now. So things do change over time. And also through council, through you, Mayor Lawrence, this council has previously said on a number of occasions, oh, I wish someone had the foresight 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. This is council's opportunity to have some matters in place now that can protect you 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. So that's another reason why adhering to these standard clauses it's for the municipality's ultimate protection. And if the developer is able to convince these utility folks that some of this stuff isn't needed, then great, the condition's satisfied and everyone gets what they want.
Thank you, Clerk. Yeah, with all respect, I think one of the risks of council going its own way and disregarding, we have professional planning, a planner, we have professional planning staff and professional staff involved in this, and it's clear to me what their recommendation is, and it's to keep the conditions in and let the developer agree with it, deal with them, and we can then still come in and add, delete if necessary in the coming months. Councillor Cassidy.
I guess the question, Mr. Morgan, have you contacted Bell in any capacity? Have you had any interaction with them?
I had no intention of putting Bell services into that subdivision, so no.
And this doesn't, help me again, this does not compel the developer to put Bell services in. Is that correct?
If, according to my read, if Bell Canada requires the services to go in, then he needs to put it in accordance with how these conditions are constructed.
And that leads the path.
If you decide at a future point in time, after his discussions with them as a council, that shouldn't be the case, then you could remove this condition. Then Bell would have the option, if they don't like that decision, then they could appeal to the tribunal. Then you'd be in a fight with the tribunal about whether or not the owner should have to provide the service. But we don't know right now whether Bell's actually required the service.
Okay. I'm going to go through the remainder of this and bring option 1 to the table. And once we've had a mover and a seconder, we can do any final debate that's required and move along.
Can you just clarify what is the difference between option 1 and option 2?
Well, we're going to find out if option 2, if we have, the next on the agenda is questions from members of the public. And we'll see if there's any members, if there are any objections to the proposal.
But before we vote on option 1, should we vote on option 2?
No, we haven't voted on anything yet. Members of the public are invited to speak to the application. The public can ask, sorry, could, in the audience, excuse me. Thank you. Members of the public are invited to speak to the application. The public can ask questions of clarification or seek background information, speak in support of the application, or speak in opposition to the application. All questions will be directed to the planning consultant through the chair. It is requested that only one question be asked at a time. Please identify yourself before you ask your question so that you can properly be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this application? Any members of the public wish to speak to the application? Seeing none. This concludes the public meeting regarding the official plan amendment OP01-2023, zoning bylaw amendment number OP01-2023, and subdivision plan amendment number SO2-2023. If any member of the public wishes to be notified of the decision of the council in respect of the application, you must make a written request to the planning coordinator. Notice to appeal the decisions of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal must be filed with the planning coordinator no later than 20 days from the date of the notice of the decision is circulated. The notice to appeal shall be sent to the attention of the planning coordinator, and it must include the following information: the reasons for the appeal and the fee as prescribed under the Ontario Land Tribunal Act in the amount of $1,100 per amendment application, i.e. $1,100 to appeal subdivision decision, $1,100 to appeal official plan amendment decision, and $1,100 to appeal the zoning bylaw amendment decision, payable by certified check to the Minister of Finance, Province of Ontario. Only individuals, corporations, or public bodies may appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal. An appeal may not be filed by an unincorporated association or group. A notice of appeal may be filed in the name of an individual who is a member of the association or group. Motions. Option 1. If there are no opposing comments raised at the statutory public meeting, which I'm confirming there were no opposing comments.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, there were no opposing comments received by members of the public or agencies, correct?
The motion that council receives the planning report dated July 19th, 2023, respecting plan of subdivision application number SO2 2023, official plan amendment application number OP01-2023, and zoning bylaw amendment application number Z02 2023, and further, that in consideration of draft plan of subdivision application number SO2 2023, council approves the draft plan of subdivision to create 14 residential lots subject to the conditions set out in the notice of decision, and further, that council authorizes staff to make minor revisions to the draft plan and draft plan conditions associated with the draft plan of subdivision, application number SO2-2023, and further, that council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 51-23 for application number OP01-2023, being a bylaw to amend the official plan for the Corporation of the Municipality of Silicout as amended, and further, the council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 52-2023, bylaw 52-23 for application number Z02-2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 85-18, being a comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Corporation of the Municipality of Silicout as amended. Moved by. Mover? Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Van Breda. Final discussion. Councillor Costco. We're authorizing staff to make final changes. So can we authorize what we want? You can suggest, propose friendly amendments to the clerk. How far can we go in this?
Pardon me, through you, Mayor Lawrence. So what's before council right now is sort of what council has discussed to vote on, which is passing it as is. If council wishes to go about that differently, then we will need council to itemize and vote on all the specific provisions they want removed in a separate that clause.
Councillor Lego.
I think to expedite this, we should be just voting for it, and if there's an issue that comes up, then it be brought back to us. We're just going around in circles. I know Mr. Morgan wants these removed, but I think we should just stay the course with option one. Work with staff to contact these these agencies, get all those boxes checked off. Hopefully it just runs smooth. Yeah, no problem. And I hope there's no problem. But we need to pass this so he can get on. I know he's not going to be happy that we may not remove some of this, but for him to move forward, it needs to be voted on tonight. And then if there's any issues moving forward, that can be brought back to us or dealt through with staff to get it done. But these agencies need to be contacted by staff and by the developer.
Any further comment, Councillor Timpson?
I think keeping in mind that this is a draft, it's not the final, and that if we go this route, then the final, we can make our decision based on what they say. We may still delete it, even though they may say there will be problems if you do. Okay, we can decide that. And I suppose we're looking at about a month. This could come back to council in a month to do this consultation.
CBO. And we'll be pressing them as yep. All right, council is going to call the vote on this. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Confirmatory bylaw number 70-23, confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux. That bylaw number 70-23, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Municipality of Sioux, July 19th, 2023, statutory public meeting be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Moved by Councillor Lego, second by Councillor Bone. All in favor? Carried. And we adjourn the statutory public meeting at 7:12 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Maybe we'll just take at it for almost 2 hours. We'll take a 5-minute break before we begin the regular council meeting. All back and ready to go, so we'll call the regular meeting of council July 19th to order at 7:21 PM and ask for any amendments to the agenda.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes, we have a few that council may wish to consider. Starting with item number 7.11, if council wishes to bring forward the zoning bylaw amendment Z07-2023 respecting the Sioux Lookout Funeral Home, that would become item number 7.11.
Anything else?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, in addition, we would also be adding potentially item 7.12, which is also arising from the statutory public meeting respecting official plan amendment application 01, subdivision application 02, 2023, and zoning bylaw amendment application 02-2023.
Very good. Further?
And then under section 10, under bylaws, if those items come forward, council will also want to add bylaw number 66-23, respecting the zoning bylaw amendment for the Sioux Lookout Funeral Home, as well as bylaw number 51-23, respecting the official plan amendment 01, 2023, and bylaw number 52-23 for zoning bylaw amendment Z02, 2023, also relating to the jam development application.
Thank you. So then, anything further?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, that's all I have for now.
So a motion that the agenda for the regular council meeting of July 19th, 2023 be approved as amended. Moved by Councillor Bowen, seconded by Councillor Van Breda. All in favor? Carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Yes. Through you, Mayor Lawrence, we have two this evening. The first is respecting item 7.4, property sale. Councillor Van Breda has declared interest in that item as he is friends with the purchaser. Additionally, item 7.6, the Municipal Disaster Assistance Recovery Program funding agreement, Councillor Costco has declared interest in that item as she owns property on Lakeshore Drive. And that's all.
Thank you. So you'll remind me and help the councillors at the time. Thank you. Adoption of minutes. Motion to adopt the minutes of the following meetings. The June 26, 2023 special council meeting minutes and the July 6, 2023 special council meeting minutes be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Any discussion? Yes. They're not there?
It's just saying that on the eScribe app, they're not attached to number 4.1.
Our apologies, Mayor Lawrence. That was a technical issue. They were completed and ready to be approved, but if council hasn't had the opportunity to review them, we can bring them forward next month instead.
Well, that being the case, we better do that. You didn't see them?
No,
Okay, so.
We'll just bring them next month,
can I
no
just-
problem.
We'll do the necessary to delete that, take that motion off. Thank you.
Through Mayor Lawrence, providing that Councillor Lego is okay with withdrawing the motion, we're good to go.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Determination of items requiring separate discussion. 7.1, Sioux Lookout Airport Roads Upgrades Contract Award. Councillor Costco. 7.2, Cedar Bay Complex Development Plan. Councillor Timpson. 7.3, kayak and canoe rental rates. Councillor Timpson. 7.4, property sale and transfer.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, we have to lift that one because the interest was declared.
Thank you. 7.5, compact skid steer purchase. 7.6, we must lift 7.6, thank you. 7.7, Wellington Street and First Avenue, long-term financing. 7.8, rural and northern immigration pilot project. 7.9, revisions to yard maintenance bylaw. Councillor Timpson. 7.10, fundraising money information has to be lifted, thank you. 7.11 is now funeral home.
Correct.
7.11 funeral home, which is on here for the bylaws, really. And 7.12 official plan amendment for Jam subdivision development. Okay. So items requiring separate discussion, I have listed as 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.6, 7.9, and 7.10. So a motion to adopt the items not requiring separate discussion, items 7.5, 7.7, 7.8, 7.11, and 7.12. Moved by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by Councillor Lego. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we'll move right along to staff reports then. Starting with 7.1. Sioux Lookout Airport Road Upgrades Contract Award. The council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 72-23, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout and AJ Positano Paving, OA Duval Developments Limited, for the completion of the Sioux Lookout Airport Road Upgrades Project in the amount of $773,980.10 plus HST. Moved by Councillor Bone, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Discussion starting with Councillor Coxcomb.
My only question is, why are we tendering this so late? And will it be completed before the end of the season with us tendering it now?
CAO. Airport manager.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence.
You have to turn it on.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, it was waiting for the design drawings to be done for tender to get us to this point. And absolutely, as per in the report, the proponent has indicated they're ready to start, and substantial completion is September 30th. So we should be fine.
Any further questions, Council? I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.2, Cedar Bay Complex Development Plan. The council approved the following recommendations from the Cedar Bay Ad Hoc Committee. Adopt the Cedar Bay Development Plan as a framework document for the Cedar Bay Development Plan. Authorize staff to investigate the acquisition of surrounding Crown land. As part of the 2024 budget, develop a site development plan and conceptual drawings for the redevelopment of Cedar Bay, and undertake any required development studies, hydrological, geotechnical, LiDAR. Moved by Councillor Van Breda, seconded by Councillor Timpson. Question, comments, starting with Councillor Timpson.
Oh, yeah, I'm really happy to see this report coming to us, and thanks to the councillors who volunteered their time to work on this plan. Just a little bit of history in terms of reports that have come to council in the past about Cedar Bay is that there's been an attempt to involve the public, and we did have a Cedar Bay Advisory Committee after the 2012 report, which was unceremoniously disbanded, and virtually nothing happened after that. The second time in 2016, a small committee was formed to look at the road issue. There was one meeting called, and as a result, we know the road that was built is completely inferior, and that was not what the people on that committee wanted or recommended. So I think that for this report, I think I'd like to see the report taken to the stakeholder groups, the Nordic Nomads, Friends of Cedar Bay, the trail, and to sit down with them and talk to them about how are we going to work with you guys to make this work so that it's not just, again, another report that the public is, that the stakeholders are not involved in implementing. I see that the only group that formally contributed to the consultation was Friends of Cedar Bay, and that Nordic Nomads, which has a very large presence out there, and the bike club were not. And I'd like to suggest that we receive this report tonight and then meet with these groups in a formal meeting of all the stakeholder groups and look at this and then form an advisory committee to oversee how this is all going to happen. That's what I would like to see, and I'm basing that on basically 16 years of working, trying to get the municipality and the user groups to work together in a formal fashion. We've had great relations with the municipality, lots of really good support with Friends of Cedar Bay. But I think if our relationships can be more formal, then we'll be able to move this forward in a much more effective way. So that's what I would like to say, and I would like to suggest that we receive the report and then discuss it with the groups and then make a formal approval. I think that bringing them in and saying we value you enough that we want you to read this before we formally go ahead, that will go a very long way in us getting their cooperation and to work in partnership.
See you.
Just to comment on what Councillor Timpson has said, the committee did reach out to a number of organizations a number of times to bring them to the table, and we were unable to get them to the table except for Friends of Cedar Bay. And when we spoke to the representative from Friends of Cedar Bay, it was more around programming, not actual hardcore development of the facility. So we see that coming forward through the next phase. So the intent that we're proposing to council tonight is to make that recommendation to do the site development plan, and in that process consult with all the user groups and all the everybody that would be using Cedar Bay in the future to get their input on what we could see and what we could envision, and come back with conceptual drawings for council to see and approve to move forward in phases. And that in that process we would also get estimates to develop, but that consultation would continue through that process as well.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see it start right now, you know, and take this report to them. And I know that you were unsuccessful in getting hold of some of the groups. That's the nature of volunteer groups. People are so busy that they often don't, you know, and maybe sometimes it's just a phone call to the right person. And I think you guys have been volunteers yourself. You know how hard you work at these things, and you know how difficult it is at times to get people, because they're too busy with their jobs and they're too busy with their volunteering sometimes. But we have to work at it.
Councillor Van Breda first, then Councillor Cassidy.
My question is just about, so I know we only have the two estimated budgets. So as of right now, it's $305,000, which is a lot of money to kind of start with. I know we haven't even looked at the high priority items in the long-term development considerations. Was there any possibility to get any FedNor/NOHFC funding to kind of help with these costs? CAO.
This, we're also going to look for funding to be able to fund some of this. These are the estimated costs to get the initial stage going. So what we're going to do now, if council approves this, is look for funding avenues to help support this.
To be clear, we're not approving the expenditure of $300,000 tonight.
No, but we're looking, sorry, through you, Your Worship, we are looking for council to endorse us to do an RFP for the consultant services to do the development plan for Cedar Bay. So we're looking to not necessarily approve it. I know you're going to want to see it as part of the budget process, but giving council the heads up that yes, we're looking at spending approximately that amount of money, and to give council staff the go-ahead to start working on an RFP for that process so that we're ready to go if should it be passed through the budget process for 2024.
Councillor Cassidy.
Just to Councillor Timpson's comments, I don't know how long we wait for people to come to us. I think if we want to sit around and talk to every single person about it and go out to their door and ask them what they think about this and maybe stand in front of them while they read it, I think it's a great way to prolong this another 16 years. We were out there, we did surveys, we sat at trade shows, staff did, there was multiple emails, I think 3 or 4 times. The executive assistant reached out to these groups. They all have email, they work, and we had one group come, and it was even challenging to get them out as well. But you know, we made the exception and worked with them. And as the CAO alluded to, it's a lot about planning. So I know you want to say this needs to happen right now, but this will happen. We need to bring in a consultant to give us an actual picture. We can't piecemeal this together anymore and keep going. We need someone that's going to come in and utilize this document and the framework here and the survey and the feedback from the community that's already been gathered as a starting point to build on. And there's always room to build. You can add, but that will come through over time. But this needs to be, and the reason we wanted to do this is we wanted to lean this document up. It was a little bloated before. And we wanted to be able to set the targets we need to achieve what we thought would be what the people wanted to, that responded to the surveys and the direction that they feel Cedar Bay should go. So that's the reason this is formulated, and we can't do hydro upgrades until we have a site development plan and know where the hydro needs to go. These are the things that need to start, and it's not going to be a 2 or 3 year process. This will be a multi-year process that's going to happen, and there's going to be lots of time. But if we want to sit around and try and, you know, get together again for another, what is it, 1.5 years we worked on this? I think we need to just take that step and start making some things happen. And once the word gets out, I think you'll maybe start seeing more people come out of the woodwork to get involved or to share their piece and support it. So I just want to be cautious that we don't make decisions or try and do things that are actually just going to prolong this. I think we need to keep moving ahead.
No, I agree. We have to. I do, but I think that we would move faster if we consolidated these groups, because they've done a lot of work, groundwork too, that you might want to know about. For example, Friends of Cedar Bay, in relation to the initiative to buy the land, we've done a fair bit of groundwork in terms of looking at the CLUPA, the Crown Land Use Policy Assessment, or rather, is it assessment? Whatever, that CLUPA. And we've got that information ready to go if the sale is not going to be feasible. And, you know, these are the kinds of things that these groups can offer to you. And the same with Nordic Nomads. And yes, it's frustrating when people don't answer, but it may be just a matter of how you get to them. So,
I understand that.
I've just seen that the committees that have started have been very enthusiastic. They've just been basically fired. And that's why we got a road that's not usable, and that's why nothing happened for 4 years before that, after 2012.
And I think the Klupa and some of the trails, those are all related to the Crown land. A lot of the facilities and some of the things that we're going to be looking at are going to be existing on municipal land. We are looking at that. So the Klupa is outside of that land use base. Now, this is where we need to expand or to look at that, and I think that's been supported at this table about acquiring those lands, because we recognize the importance and we recognize the risk that, you know, things could happen, and it's still technically in a forest management plan, and we don't want to see that happen. And I know, you know, I've sat at the table with Friends of Cedar Bay when I was there, and I realized that, you know, there was, to facilitate and to promote the good work that they do, the facilities need to be there. We're lacking the facilities and usable facilities, and that's what this is about, is bringing those facilities up to a usable standard, because historically there's been a lot of hard work put into getting those where they are. It's unfortunate that they are the way they are, but we need to reinvigorate them and move forward, because I'm of the philosophy, if you build it, they'll come. If you put the right things that are multi-use and not overly specific that a lot of people can come and use, you'll see more people come and use it, and I think it'll be really good. So.
Oh, absolutely. When would you then foresee the public becoming more formally involved in this? Or the user groups being formally involved in some sort of an oversight committee?
CAO.
It's like any project that you start to develop, like the waterfront. Once you have a conceptual plan, people see it, they feel it, and then they bring their ideas forward. So I anticipate, like, have a preliminary site drawing, have a public information session where people can come out, give us their input, and also reach out again to different stakeholders that use Cedar Bay, the trails, and so on and so forth. So I see more involvement along that process, but we have to get that process started, because the more we talk about it, we're not moving forward.
Councilor Lego.
We spent probably 8 months reaching out to people, and we received one in person from an organization. And there was not just probably 3 or 4, but half a dozen emails. Every time we had a meeting, we tried to set up to have someone come in and discuss their vision. At some point, we had to finish this report to come to council. I think the committee and staff did a great job of whittling it down from 58 pages to what we have here. We have current data, current census information. Staff just reached out and got some costs to get a conceptual idea going, and then we move forward.
I agree, it's very good work. Yeah. I just want to see it.
Yeah. We wanted to see it as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so.
Oh,
Councilor Lego, yes.
Yeah, just if I would like to add that council also needs to consider that we have MAT tax money coming in every year. The money that we've been putting out to pay for the waterfront should be done midsummer at some point, or the next few months. But anyway, we need to consider some of the reserves that do not get money put into it, which mainly are Cedar Bay and boat launches. You know, we collect money for boat launches by selling boat passes, but there's no money left over at the end of the day to do any work, so we have to borrow money to do the work. So I would like council just to keep in mind that as we learn what we're making every year, maybe we put money into those reserves that never get looked at.
So that's for a separate discussion, but. So let's take the next step on Cedar Bay, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Kayak and canoe rental rates. The council approves the rental rates for kayaks, canoes, and related equipment as outlined in the Manager Recreation and Cultures Report number 2023-96, dated July 19th, 2023. By Councillor Bone. Seconded by Councillor Cassidy. I'm laughing because the first move was actually an eyeglass adjustment. Starting with Councillor Timpson.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to know, will residents be able to rent a space for their own kayaks there?
CAO.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I would like if you could just explain the question you had.
Will residents, people who live in town who own their own kayak, could they rent a space to keep their kayak there?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, we are not opening up the storage space for common public. If a member of the public has a kayak for so long, I'm pretty sure they have a place to store that.
Okay, so
No, we are not. We are just doing it for the municipal property. We are storing municipal property.
And will there be staff? It said that they have to return it to the staff at the beach. Is there always a staff at the beach that would accept it? Or?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes, we do have staff starting from Wednesdays to Sundays, we have from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Staff starts at 7 in the morning, making sure that they clean up all the needles and the broken bottles so that it's safe for the public. And during the other normal hours, we have staff starting at 6 in the morning till 8:30 at night in the summer and till 2 o'clock in the winter.
Be there. And just a little bit concerned about one of them in the agreement. If the municipality would not be responsible for the condition that the kayak is in when it goes out, isn't that a little bit risky?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, to answer your question, Councillor Timpson, we are also making the renters sign a waiver form, and at the end of the end of the proposal which I've put in, it says that the staff is going to do a thorough inspection and sign on the return in okay condition, so that it's basically what we are trying to do is we are giving out a good equipment, and we expect the member of the public to respect that equipment and bring it in the condition which they received in. The staff also promises not to give out any equipment which is not in a usable condition. Before it's given out, there'll be inspection done so that we don't have any liability on that.
That's where number 4, it kind of concerned me. It said that the municipality takes no responsibility or makes no guarantee as to the condition or safe use of the equipment. That kind of worries me a bit, that condition.
That's for the, sorry, go ahead, Clerk.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes. So it's important, though, that you read the agreement in its entirety, because Section 1 says the renter accepts full responsibility for the equipment rented. The renter has inspected and agreed to the equipment is provided in clean and proper working condition. So the intent here, Councillor Timpson, is to put some onus on the people actually using the equipment to make sure that they've also done their due diligence in making sure that they've looked at it, that it's something that they can handle, that it's something that it's within their capability to use, and this is fairly the typical language for this type of waiver. We did have it vetted through legal counsel as well, so we would recommend the wording as it appears.
Item 4 is referring to the use of the equipment, not the condition of the equipment.
Correct.
Councillor Van Breda?
Shifting gears a tiny bit, I believe that it would probably make more sense and probably be easier for the public to have the life jackets included with the costs. Would it be possible to maybe amend 7.3 to say, that the life jackets will be included with the cost of the rental? I think that would entice people maybe to use it more often, right? It's $25. I'm assuming tax included, not plus HST. Big, and I got fined $5 more. Just big. For $25 for an hour, you have everything. Just $25 period.
That would make sense.
I think that would entice people more.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, actually, to entice people more and get more participation through the direction of the CAO, we have also waived the deposit which other municipalities do. Not a lot of municipalities do rent kayaks and canoes. The reason we have done this is, yes, we used to give out free stuff. Like, I would not say free, it's taxpayers' money. We are making them use and give benefit. But what we have recently noticed is we have put out a lot of parks around, and we recently had a park inspection done. Things which are being given out as onus or a bonus or a gift is not being appreciated in the right way. For example, Town Beach. We don't charge any fee to that like most of the other municipalities do, but it's not being respected. So at least so that we can have something like, if I use it and take responsibility of it because I'm paying for it, the next person can use it. That is basically what we were doing. That's the intention of adding this. And it's a pretty minimal amount, $5 per person, because it's not even touching the break even for what we have paid to buy those.
Yeah, no, like for me, sorry, just to go off, I actually know that, for example, in Kenora, it's nice knowing that $20 covers everything. And maybe also we can include in the waterfront rental agreement saying, you know, the equipment which also covers the life jackets and other safety and materials as well.
So what we can do through you, Mayor Lawrence, what we can do is instead of like, yeah, I understand that this shows that extra $5 is, you know, it does not look good. What we can do is we can increase the price of kayaks and paddles because we are also including paddles, make it a total package and put it up to 30 and canoes and paddles to 35. I think that would be competitive with other municipalities as well. Like we are removing the protective equipment thing, which is a thing through the government. It is a mandate, so we will be removing it, but we can also adjust the prices so that, you know what, we can at least cover the cost which is being used because it's a perishable item and it's coming out of taxpayers' dollars.
So Councillor Van Breda, you can have your way, but the suggestion is you could have your way, but the price would go up. It could be an all-inclusive price for.
Can we vote on maybe keeping it at the $25 and $30 all-inclusive, or should we go forward with raising the prices? I don't want to raise the price at all of this. I think that's what I'm trying to say here too. Is
Councillor Cassidy.
I guess if you're going to include it, then you'll have people that show up and maybe have their own life jacket and say, well, I want money taken off. I got my own life jacket. I don't need it. Now this provides that flexibility. And if you just increase it to $5, actually the canoes are saving because if you put two people in a canoe, that's $10 in life jacket rentals versus just $5. So I would just say leave it as is. And that's just what it comes down to.
Councillor Costco.
The other thing you might have is someone that doesn't necessarily fit the life jackets that you have, but have their own, right? Because they know they're not going to fit one that's there. So, and life jackets have gone up hugely in price. I was shocked when I bought one the other day. So if you have to replace them, they're very cost prohibitive.
So, what about the suggestion? I'm not sure if you were suggesting this, that increase the price to $30 all-inclusive. However, if you provide your own life jacket, there's a $5 rebate.
No, I was saying if we include it, it's going to put some more interaction, I guess, with staff, with the public, and people might come to say, I want a discount, I brought my own life jacket. I think we should just leave it as it is.
Okay.
I agree. I agree to leave it the way it is. It's fine.
Councillor Lego.
Where do people have to pay to get? Do they have to go to the rec center, or eventually we'll have someone down at the beach taking?
Unfortunately, because this was a late start, we'll have to stick to having it at the rec center for now. Once the CCTV project is done and we know our equipments are secured there with the computer and the POS machines, I'm pretty sure I'm 100% sure next year we'll move it to the town beach.
Thank you. Anything further, Council?
CAO. Through you, Mayor Lawrence, just to answer Councillor Timpson's question earlier, I did have people approach me specifically about being able to keep their kayaks and or canoes at the waterfront and pay a fee to store them there. And we're not set up for that yet. And the storage that we do have, it has to be used for ours because there's not enough storage for individual canoes and kayaks. But we are looking at that as a possible revenue stream for next year to add racks and rent them out.
Anything further, Council? Then I will call the vote. All in favor? Carried. We now have an item that involves a conflict. Councillor Van Breda has declared. Thank you, Ronnie. Property sale and transfer. The Council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 67-23 being a bylaw to authorize and direct the mayor and the clerk to execute agreements and documents regarding the sale of the hereinafter described land by the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux Lookout to Patricia Lynn Ramirez and David Enrico Ramirez, West Lane, Hudson, and further that council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 68-23, being a bylaw to authorize the conveyance of certain hereinafter described land by the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux Lookout to Patricia Lynn Ramirez and David Enrico Ramirez, and to direct the mayor and the clerk to execute the transfer West Lane, Hudson. Moved by Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And the next item is for you, Councillor Costco. Well, it's not for you, but it's...
It's fast.
That's unusual. That's unusual. Seven point six, Municipal Disaster Recovery Program Funding Agreement. The council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 71-23, being a bylaw to authorize and direct the mayor and clerk to execute a contribution agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux Lookout and His Majesty the King in Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the Municipal Disaster Recovery Assistance Program, MDRA. Moved by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by Councillor Bone. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And item 7.9 will be next. Better pause and just make sure. Item 7.9, revisions to yard maintenance bylaw number 74-23. The council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 74-23, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 16-06, being a bylaw to provide for the maintaining of land in a clean and clear condition as amended. Moved by Councillor Costco, seconded by Councillor Van Breda. Discussion starting with Councillor Timpson.
Indicated that there's very few people who don't comply to the regulation to mow their boulevards. Do you think that's going to stay if the town stops mowing some of the boulevards that they are? Are the people then going to take responsibility for that, do you think? Or?
Through Mayor Lawrence, yes. The vast majority of property owners do maintain the boulevards that abut their homes. The two areas in particular that the municipality maintains on Wellington Street and on 3rd Avenue North, I don't think that, I think property owners will still want their properties to look nice, and I think that they will take on taking care of those boulevards as well, just as long as they do with the rest of their front yards.
It's quite possible they won't, though. You know, how many then properties will we be looking at where, you know, if they all decide, no, not going to do it.
So through you, Mayor Lawrence, you know, council may wish to take the wait and see approach. If we find there's non-compliance, we can bring this back to council and council can say, okay, we'll continue to mow Wellington and 3rd, but everybody else has to mow their own boulevard. Staff brought this forward from the perspective of fairness and equity, that if the municipality is mowing some boulevards, we should either mow them all or none. We don't have the capacity to mow them all. So the default position would be that we ask homeowners to mow an extra couple of feet in front of their homes.
And they'll be properly advised and so on.
Sorry?
They'll be properly advised and...
Oh, of course, yeah. We'll put information out to the public. No one would receive a fine off the bat. There would be education, there would be public notice. Then on the first offense, after the public notice period, people would get a warning, and then after that, fines would be issued.
So now the people that, for whom there are complaints, who don't mow their boulevard, are they also not mowing their own?
No, they mow their lawn. They just choose not to mow the boulevard.
Lawn, but they don't mow the...
Yes.
Okay. Okay, just wondering, thank you.
Councillor Costco.
Will you also, like you say, maintain the boulevard? Will you be also able to add like dirt and, because like my boulevard, for example, I mow it, but it's just gravel and there's very little stuff growing on it. So, and I know some cities, they also, people grow low-growing phlox or, you know, creeping things and to make the boulevard look nicer. So that will be permitted?
I believe so. I mean, unless there was significant objections to that by either neighbors or the municipality, I can't think of any offhand, but they do come sometimes unexpectedly. But yeah, I mean, certainly if people wanted to, you know, we wouldn't want people to alter that, you know, to create a grade that isn't already there, but leveling, sure. You know, we wouldn't want people to change the grade so that water starts running towards their home or their neighbor's home or anything like that, but keeping it level, absolutely, that would be appreciated for sure.
Anything further, Council? Then I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 7.10, fundraising money information to be made public. Notice of motion to council from the regular council meeting held June 21, 2023 regarding fundraising money to be made public, submitted by Councillor Costco and Councillor Van Breda. Whereas the municipality of Sioux Lookout recognizes it has a duty to strive for transparency, and further, whereas the municipality of Sioux Lookout continues to strive for effective and meaningful ways to serve the public's interest, including fundraised money for a municipal project, and further, whereas the municipality of Sioux Lookout will utilize the municipal website to post public information that serves these purposes, and further, be it resolved that the municipality of Sioux Lookout to post any fundraised public donations publicly via the municipal website. Moved by Councillor Costco, seconded by Councillor Van Breda, and discussion. Councillor Costco.
I just think this is important because there's so much misinformation out there. And if you could just go to the website and check it out in a simple manner, I think it would alleviate a lot of chatter in the community. And I know myself, I used to run the Ladies Night Out charity auction. We used to donate a lot of money. We would look for things to donate it to. And one time we did donate money to the town to build a slide or something like that. But we didn't give them enough money to actually do the project. So they just held our money. And it would be nice, like we could have went in and checked, these are what the monies are for. And when we were giving out our money, because we would raise like $30,000, $40,000 a year, and then we would decide who needs this money, what can we give it to? We could say, hey, look, there's a project right here. These people, they have half of what they need. Why don't we just top that up? So, and I think there are people who are looking to donate, and I think that if this was just public information, easily accessible, I think it would be a positive thing for the community.
Thank you. Councillor Van Breda.
Yes, to talk a little bit of a backstory about how this got started. I know that this kind of began with the dog park fundraising project. I know at the end of the day it It wasn't a lot of money, but however, I think that, again, there was that misinformation, there was that confusion, and obviously people have to fill in the gaps, right? That's where you get, gossip, misinformation. And I know I'm not trying to point the finger or blame anything, but if there's something on the internet, something that we could point to and say, this web page has everything you need, X, Y, and Z, and CBA, that would alleviate a lot of this, gossip, misinformation, and say again, we're striving for transparency as much as possible, right? So saying this is available online. If you have any questions, if you're concerned or anything, siouxlco.ca/finance/municipal projects fundraising.ca.
Thank you. CAO. Clerk.
To you, Mayor Lawrence, one thing I would like to suggest would be to add a whereas clause, and that it be worded something to the effect that any municipal fundraising sanctions must be approved by council before they're initiated. I think that that's important as well, so that we don't have, there have been instances where members of the public in very good intentions have said, oh, here's some money, we'd like you to put it to good use or something like that. So I think we have to be very careful when we're dealing with donations from the public. I think if this is going to move forward, I think that we would need to have some guidelines around issuing receipts. We would have to put disclaimers on stuff so that people understand that their name and their information may become public, and so on and so forth. So, to do fundraising correctly and to be fully transparent, there's a few other things we may need to put in place as well to make this work. But primarily, I would recommend that one of the whereas clauses, or that a whereas clause be added to say that all fundraising initiatives must be approved by council in advance.
Well, I'll get 1 second to I had a thought just as you began speaking, you've confirmed it, which may lead to more work for staff. But is there value in holding off on this and doing a policy on fundraising so that it's not, I understand the motivation behind this, that's great, but let's put a policy together on money to be raised from public fundraising. And also, to be clear, do we fundraise when we go to NOHFC or FEDNOR? Is that fundraising when we advocate? Is that fundraise money? I mean, that's reported, of course, but there's other, and I know I sit on, I won't name it, but I sit on a board that does public fundraising for project, and it becomes, one of the problematic is people are specific. This is for the dog park and nothing else, or this, where, and then if the project doesn't go ahead, as in this case, this is a separate board that's quite different, but it gets problematic so I think that we need perhaps a more comprehensive approach to this, and that would lead to transparency as well, absolutely, or heightened transparency. I don't think there's any attempt to hide things here, it's just, but so I'm proposing, spinning off on your comments, Clerk, and looking at the mover and the seconder to say maybe what council should be directing staff to do is to develop, and I don't think this is a huge task, sorry, never do, of course, to develop a policy. Councilor Jensen.
Just to clarify, you're talking about grants, not fundraising donations, you're talking about.
People who, like, if I give a project like Joyce, I'm gonna give her $100.
Oh, I see.
Like, where did my money go?
Oh, I see. Okay, so you're not talking about grants, grant money?
No.
Oh, I see.
So CAO had
Just to further what the clerk had said and touch on it, a lot of donors for different projects want anonymity as well.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful when we're posting this kind of information. If council's looking for just to say, these are how the fundraising dollars we've received so far, this is our target, that would be a lot easier than trying to pinpoint, not necessarily pinpoint. We have records of who donate, but lots of times too, it's in the park It could be a fundraiser during Canada Day where people just stick money in, you know, a jar. We don't know who exactly gave it. So we have to be careful on how we disseminate that information, and especially too with anonymity. In reference specifically to the dog park, we did some digging and we did find donations, specific donations, and a lot of people wanted to remain anonymous.
Councillor Costco.
I believe that was our intention. Like, we don't want to publish who gives money. We just want to say the dog park, the goal to build a dog park is, you know, $250,000, and we have $220. You know, even you're looking at people, like my sister always makes Christmas donations, you know, looks at different things and can, so I think if that information is out there, and children have birthday parties and choose causes, you know, children could have birthday parties for the dog park if they know we're getting close, you know, but now, or if it's not reasonable, right? So it's just information that people have to make decisions on. And it's intended on money that has been donated for a certain project, not grants or anything like that. And we don't want anyone's names attached to it.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I would support that staff develop a policy and bring it back to council.
And can, I hate to ask this question, but I will. The timing of that, how is it, I know you have January the 1st.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, I think it would be worthwhile to publicize NOHFC grants, FedNor,
We do
whatever.
that, I mean, we do that already
Yeah.
in our council resolutions in a sense.
Or have it in one place, you know, where people could just refer to it.
But I think if we accept this idea of developing a policy, your clerk, your suggestion that any fundraising, proposed fundraising, needs to be approved by council prior, with a plan as well, which includes a transparency plan and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Councillor Costco.
For example, when we accepted the dog park money, we've sort of, and we've even have a sign in front of the arena, we've sort of accepted some responsibility. And we're very far from making that a reality, right? Where if it was a committee that had that, they would have the responsibility. So I do agree that we have to prove that we're going to accept the responsibility of doing the project. If we accept the money, we basically have accepted that. So that would allow us not to accept the money because we're not doing the project.
So, Clerk, may I ask, or I'm proposing that we table or withdraw this and direct staff to develop a fundraising policy. I would need to get the mover and the seconder. Mover to agree to that. Mover, sorry.
Councillor Costco.
It's not that far away, actually. The summer's almost over. Sorry.
Working towards, you know, that in the future that this will exist and will protect people's, you know, ideas.
I also note that you won't be here on January. All right, so that's, we've gone through the process required to withdraw that?
You, Mayor Lawrence, yes. So the original resolution has been withdrawn. The new resolution would read that council directs staff to develop a fundraising policy, along with some of the notes that you've given us about some of the things to include.
Discussion at the so we need a mover. We need
Please.
To move by Councillor Costco, seconded by Councillor Van Breda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Oh boy. How are you feeling, Mr. Clerk? Thank you. Outside resolutions.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, certainly. As council's aware, we are copied on resolutions from other municipalities quite frequently. They appear on the council correspondence list that you see once a month. I believe council's aware that if there's ever any of those that you see that you think, oh, hey, we should throw our support behind, you can always bring that to my attention. We would add it to the agenda. This one, I was contacted specifically by a group called the Women of Ontario Say No. And they requested specifically that it be added to this agenda. So when we get a request like that, that's not from another municipality, but from an outside group that requests specifically that it be put on the agenda, we put it on the agenda. So that's how it ended up here this evening. So the recommendation reads that council supports the Women of Ontario Say No regarding improved municipal codes of conduct and enforcement, and further that council gives its support and adopts the resolution below, which reads, whereas all Ontarians deserve and expect a safe and respectful workplace, whereas municipal governments as democratic institutions most directly engaged with Ontarians need respectful discourse, whereas several incidents in recent years of disrespectful behavior and workplace harassment have occurred amongst members of municipal councils, whereas these incidents seriously and negatively affect the people involved and lower public perceptions of local government, whereas municipal codes of conduct are helpful tools to set expectations of council member behavior, whereas municipal governments do not have the necessary tools to adequately enforce compliance with municipal codes of conduct. Now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of Sioux Lookout supports the call of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for the Government of Ontario to introduce legislation to strengthen municipal codes of conduct and compliance with them in conjunction with municipal government, in consultation, with municipal governments. Be it also resolved that the legislation encompass the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's recommendations for updating municipal codes of conduct to account for workplace safety and harassment, creating a flexible administrative penalty regime adapted to the local economic and financial circumstances of municipalities across Ontario, increasing training of municipal integrity commissioners to enhance consistency of investigations and recommendations across the province, allowing municipalities to apply to a member of the judiciary to remove a sitting member if recommended through a report of a municipal integrity commissioner, and prohibit a member so removed from sitting for election in the term of removal and the subsequent term of office. So in council's package, there was some additional background information that was supplied by this organization, but that's the resolution as was developed by AMO, and this group is encouraging its adoption by councils across Ontario.
And with outside resolution requests for support, we do it at the same meeting, at this meeting?
Yes.
So if I ask for a mover for this and a seconder, then we can, okay. So is there a mover for this item? Councillor Timpson, seconded by Councillor Van Breda. Discussion. Councillor Lego.
Now, is every municipality code of conduct different? Like, do we craft our own?
So through you, Mayor Lawrence, every municipality is responsible to develop their code of conduct. There's been some legislative direction, but more suggestions and guidance as to what it can include. At this point, the government has not prescribed specifically everything that should be included in a municipal code of conduct, and I think that's one of the things they're looking for, some standardization, so all elected officials at the local level across Ontario are sort of held to the same standards. I think that's part of what they're trying to do.
Okay. Anything further, Council? I would just say when I see that this has been proposed by the Association of the Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, they are a very serious body and do not take things to the province of Ontario without serious analysis and thought. So this is not it's something they consider as needed. I think it adds a lot of weight to it. Councillor Timpson.
Just one question. It says workplace harassments have occurred amongst members of municipal councils. It sounds like it's between council people. But some of the things that we've read in the paper has been inappropriate behavior by council members to staff. And is the AMO resolution taking that into account?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, so incidents of, in that case, if we're looking at bullying between, from a superior to an inferior, like in the organization, from a council member to a member of staff, that would already be dealt with under our workplace violence and harassment and bully-free policies, because staff could make a complaint against a member of council in that respect. if you are asking about staff harassing a member of council, was that the particular iteration you're looking at?
Well, yeah, because the harassment policy doesn't address consequences for harassment by a member, whereas the code of conduct does, you know.
Yes, but any staff member can still utilize our bully, harassment, and violence-free workplace policies to make a complaint against a member of council, and it would still trigger an investigation and those types of things.
Yeah, I just wonder if it shouldn't somehow be reflected in the code of conduct as well.
Yeah, and I suspect that this is sort of the intent of the resolution is to sort of push the government to take some action on codes of conduct and to consider what should or could be included. So I would very much expect that type of scenario would be crystallized and explained in a revised code requirements.
Okay.
Councillor Bone.
Are we agreeing to the AMO sample resolution text, not to the wording and the details? I'm just a little confused on that, what we're going to accept. Like, I go through the details and there's whereas, but then you go, AMO has their sample. I'm just wondering what we're...
It's in the resolution, also be it resolved. The legislation encompasses the AMO's recommendations for, and then there are 5 bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we are supporting.
Okay.
It's not a finished product. It's up to the government of Ontario to finish the product by responding positively to the push from municipalities to work on this.
So just to clarify, Councillor Bone, you're asking, is it the resolution on the council agenda that's being passed or the attached resolution, the AMO sample text? Okay, yeah. So in this case, there's some similarities, but in this case, we would likely focus on the AMO resolution specifically. There's a lot of overlap between the two, but we would be focusing on the AMO resolution because it's more succinct, and that's what most municipalities have passed is the AMO resolution, and then send that on. This group just wanted to basically have their resolution bring it to our attention, the AMO resolution. So that's sort of what's happened.
Because there is different wording.
Yes. So what we would be sending to this group, to the Premier, and to whoever else we circulate it to will be what says AMO sample resolution text in your agreement. That's what we'll circulate. Yep.
Okay.
You don't circulate this resolution?
No.
Okay. How do they get a certified resolution?
Well, they'll get a certified resolution of the AMO resolution, which basically is what they're asking us to do, is pass the AMO resolution. They went about it in an interesting way, but that's okay.
I think the concept is very good. All in favor? Carried. I'd to ask you again, but bylaws.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Lawrence. The following bylaws are being presented to Council this evening for first, second, third reading and final passing. Bylaw number 67-23 being a bylaw to authorize and direct the mayor and the clerk to execute agreements and documents regarding the sale of the hereinafter described land by the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux to Patricia Lynn Ramirez and David Enrico Ramirez, West Lane in Hudson. And further, if I may just, so we will need to, we can do it one of two ways. Either you can stay in and just not vote on any of the bylaws, or we can pull that one out, have council vote on it, and then you can come back in and vote on the rest, whichever you prefer.
It goes on me. I feel like it'll be passed if I'm here or not, so I'll just stay here and just
Very
not
good.
say anything.
Yeah.
I think it'll be passed anyway.
Yeah. So then you just can't vote on it. Absolutely, that's good. Okay, bylaw number 68-23, being a bylaw to authorize the conveyance of certain hereafter described land by the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux to Patricia Lynn Ramirez and David Enrico Ramirez, and to direct the mayor and the clerk to execute the transfer. Again, that's respecting West Lane. So the first one authorizes sale, second one authorizes the transfer of land. Bylaw number 71-23, being a bylaw to authorize and direct the mayor and the clerk to execute a contribution agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux and His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, for the Municipal Disaster Recovery Assistance Program. Bylaw number sorry, everybody. Bylaw number 72-23. I'm reading faster than I'm speaking, apparently. Oh, sorry, yes. So, Councillor Costco, with regard to 71-23, are you okay just not voting on? Okay. Bylaw number 72-23, I'll try this again. Being a bylaw to authorize and direct the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux and AJ Positano Paving, operating as Duvel Developments Limited, for the completion of the Sioux Airport Road Upgrades Project in the amount of $773,980.10 plus HST. Bylaw number 74-23, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 16-06, being a bylaw to provide for the maintaining of land in a clean and clear condition as amended. We also have bylaw number 66-23, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 85-18, being a comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux as amended. Again, this is respecting the Sioux Funeral Home zoning bylaw amendment application. We also have bylaw number 51-23, being a bylaw to amend the official plan for the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux as amended. That's respecting OP amendment number OP 01-2023. That's respecting JAM developments. And finally, that bylaw authorizes the passing of bylaw number 52-23, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 85-18, being a comprehensive zoning bylaw for the municipality of Sioux as amended, and that is also respecting the JAM developments subdivision application. That's all I have for bylaws this evening.
And bylaws numbers?
That bylaw numbers, sorry, 67-23, 68-23, 71-23, 72-23, 74-23, 66-23, 51-23, and 52-23.
Be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Moved by Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Thank you. And do you need to note anything about the
I'll just note in the minutes that the two members of the council who declared interest did not vote on the bylaws.
Thank you. Notices of motions to reconsider, none.
Correct.
And councillor reports. Councillor Costco, go ahead.
I attended the luncheon that we had with Lac Sioux regarding the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and it was very enjoyable. It's some very interesting stories, and it was great time. And Mayor Lawrence was there, and Councillor Van Breda. I also met with Commander Carl Duell regarding an incident that happened in Sioux Lookout, and I had a very great conversation with him, and he's got some good things planned, and I'm looking forward to that. I also attended the training session that we had, and I did some more of my online training, and I also participated in the library garden project, and I made a personal donation of the mulch to the project. And that was my month.
Thank you. Councillor Bone.
June 26th, attended a special council meeting. July 6th as well, education and training special council meeting. July 1st, I attended the Canada Day celebrations. It was well attended. Many activities for the children. It was quite nice actually. I met Mayor Lawrence. He was doing the same thing I was, chasing grandchildren. And July 10th, I recently visited Los Angeles, and when I was looking at my map and the surroundings, City Hall was a close walk, so I went into City Hall. Thought I had walked into the LA Police Department when I walked into because there's 4 officers sitting there, and I was there with my daughter, and they were quite nice and gave me access to the whole building after I got my visitor pass. It had an observatory up top, so I had a great view of the city. That's one of the reasons I went to. I actually went to the clerk's office and stopped short. I said, I know those guys are busy, so. And then met a couple people coming down from the observatory that actually were staff, environmental staff and stuff, and had a quick conversation with them, and then I went on with the rest of my day. So, yeah, that was basically what I've been up to.
Thank you. Councillor Timpson.
We had a brief meeting of the Environment Committee to discuss the possibility of a group of people from Kenora meeting with council to discuss some of the economic advantages in composting. And anyway, that will be investigated, I guess. And I attended the high school graduation and presented the announcement of the awards to the students, since we didn't actually have the checks, but that was an interesting experience. I did 3 sessions for a total of greeting of 4 locum medical doctors. These are very pleasant experiences. I really do enjoy that. I am asking for assistance from council members that are interested, the mayor, Brian, Michelle. For August, I won't be here during the month of August, and they're having a lot of locums coming. So I've sent out the announcements to you, and just let me know who can do it. And maybe some of the other council members would like to get involved in that, because it's very pleasant.
Circulate the dates to the rest of council.
Yeah, okay. And maybe somebody who's done it before would want to go with them to just orient to how we conduct it. Just have a half an hour meeting with these folks, and we show a little PowerPoint and give them a letter of welcoming. It's really very nice. Yeah. We on about the 10th of July, I guess that was the 11th of July, the board of the library received information that the CEO had resigned as of the day before. So what we have been doing has been trying to plan for how we're going to fill in the next 3 months until the permanent CEO returns. So that's taken a fair bit of back and forth communication. And one question that I would like to get an answer to, because it's been on Facebook a lot, and I've had a lot of people asking me about what is happening with the docks down at the town beach.
So let's do that as a separate. We won't bring that to the table tonight.
No, but I'm just saying, you know, we are asking questions here, and I'd like to, if we could get some response on that, because it's a lot of the public is asking. So, well, yes, I did go to Connect Canada Day, not for the opening, but I was there. It was very nice. Okay, that was my month.
Thank you. Councillor Van Breda.
Awesome. It was also a busy month for me too. So again, attended the lunch meeting with Mayor Lawrence, Councillor Costco, and Chief Bull, Darlene, and also 2 councillors from Lac Sioux. Had a great time actually sharing our background, you know, how we got started in politics. I thought that was a lot of fun, and definitely hopefully we could do that again soon. Also attending the environmental committee meeting on composting. So we have 1 member of the environmental committee reaching out to the hopefully guest speakers coming in to talk about the economic benefits on composting here in Sioux Lookout. So hopefully we should hear back definitely by the fall. Attended the council meeting on June 26th and also the 6th of July too. Attended Kenora Pride, which was good because now we are getting ready for the Sioux Lookout Pride. It's kind of learn from what they did in Kenora and apply it to what we could do here. Make sure that the Pride Parade is going to be inclusive. Everyone feels open and welcome to it as well. Met with the locum with Councillor Timpson. Actually had a great time with that doctor, and I've seen him around too, so I feel like he's gotten a warm welcome to Sioux Lookout, and I feel like he's hopefully like would stay, and we need him, so yeah. Other than that, been pretty busy volunteering with the Blueberry Festival, so that's coming up in next 2 weeks, so we've been busy with that, and I think this Blueberry Festival is definitely going to be throwing the next 2 years out of the water. I think we're doing a good job, and hopefully the town will agree. Also getting ready for, again, the Sioux Lookout Pride Parade as well, and looking forward to tomorrow's council meeting as well.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy.
Special council meetings for myself as well that have already been mentioned. I was able to take in the Canada Day festivities as well, set out by the Lions. I think they did a great job. It was nice. Nice to see that event kind of progress and grow a little bit every year too. And having it down at the dock or the town beach there, I think it's just great. And also finally got our agenda or meeting set for the AMO Policing Task Force, which will be on the 31st. So be attending that.
Great, thank you. Councillor Lego.
Just the 2 special council meetings, and today, along with the mayor and CEO, went out to Sioux for their homecoming.
Thank you. I too attended a lunch with the councillors, and I thought that was a good way to help you get into your TRC work that it looks like might be starting. Sorry, just to meet. And the Northwestern Health Unit board meeting and follow-up exchanges with the CEO and Medical Officer of Health, Ontario Health Team meeting. Canada Day, and I should shout out to the Lions Club for once again hosting it is the Lions Club that put that on every year, the Canada Day activities, so attended that and made remarks on behalf of the municipality. And thank you to councillors who have filled in for me when I was out of town, Councillor Lego, Councillor Timpson, for some activities. A special council meeting, met with MP Malillo, and he brought in gifts from our sister city in Ukraine, which we are now working on developing something to send back that's appropriate to them. And I won't talk about it. I'll let staff bring that forward in the future. But received 2 flags, and if you'd like to see them, they're in my office. They provided us flags that had sort of blended Ukraine and Canada, and with some logos on them. They were quite nice, and some other gifts that I'll have to work with staff on how we handle them. Some chocolates and some other such things. I haven't touched any of them yet. So, KDSB Finance and Audit Committee meeting, KDSB Governance Committee meeting. Went with the OPP on a tour of some addresses of interest to get more background information on policing concerns. Meeting with the new CEO, CAO, Michelle and I met with the new CEO for Slifna earlier this week. We had set that up some time ago and just had a meeting to introduce ourselves and start a good conversation, and that looks like we hope we'll have a good relationship there. And participated today and gave remarks on behalf of council to the Lac Sioux homecoming. It's really what they're doing as treaty celebrations. So I was invited to attend Treaty 3 celebrations by Treaty 3 in either of 4 locations, Fort Francis, Dryden, Kenora, and somewhere in Manitoba. They're doing a sort of official Treaty 3 celebrations. I wrote back a letter declining and saying, thank you, I will be attending and celebrating Treaty 3 150th anniversary with Lac Sioux in Lac Sioux, which was, so Lac Sioux are having 3 days of celebrations, and the council was made aware that you're all invited to drop in, just go out anytime. There's sort of dispersed activities all around the community for kids, adults. There's drive-in movies, there's a Johnny Cash impersonator, there's various things going on. But gave remarks, and we presented a paddle on behalf of the municipality to Chief Bull this morning. So often I go to Lac Sioux. They're so gracious and generous in giving gifts every time, and they do. I said this to public. They do ceremony and tradition so much better than we do. We are like me, Squarehead. We're all about process and pretty dry and businesslike and formal. But so we were able to, and thanks to the CAO for helping to arrange, and thanks for our Police Service Board Chair, Darlene Anjicad, for coming up with the concept, and a local artist, Chelsea Gregg, who did the painting. We did on the paddle, we did a sort of a symbolic hybrid logo of Sioux Lookout's logo and Lac Sioux's logo blended together as a sign of friendship, and it seemed to be well appreciated.
We have pictures of it. I have pictures of it, so we'll circulate.
And that was the month ending with this council meeting. And we now have a closed session. So we have a motion that we move into closed session at 8:42 p.m. to discuss matters of a general nature, as noted below. Subject matter relating to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, Section 239, 2B, one item, municipal boards, commissions, and committees. And subject matter relating to labor relations or employee negotiations pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, Section 239, 2D, one item, non-union compensation. Moved by Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Carried. We are now moving into closed
Okay, through you, Mayor Lawrence, items arising from closed session will include the following. The first resolution is respecting appointments to council boards and committees. It reads as follows, that council approves amending Schedule A to bylaw number 68-22, being a bylaw to make appointments to various boards, commissions, and committees by appointing Alan Howie, Barry King, Mario Rossetti, and Sean Bauer to the Sioux Lookout Hydro Inc. Board of Directors. And further, that council approves amending Schedule A to bylaw number 68-23, being a bylaw to make appointments to various boards, commissions, and committees by appointing Brent Wesley and Naomi Hop Mesheni to the Municipal Committee on Truth and Reconciliation.
Moved by Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Van Breda. All in favor? Carried.
And through you, Mayor Lawrence, that council ratifies direction provided to staff in closed session respecting non-union, non-management salary compensation.
We need a motion for that?
Please.
Moved by Councillor Costco, seconded by Councillor Van Breda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we can now go to confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, just to clarify as well, Councillors Van Breda and Costco won't vote on the the confirmatory bylaw because they had declared interest in a couple of items.
Thank you. That bylaw number 60-23 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Municipality of Sioux Lookout, July 19th, 2023 regular council meeting be read first, second, and third time and passed. Moved by Councillor Bowen, seconded by Councillor Timpson. All in favor? Carried. And as noted, two councillors didn't participate in the vote, and we now are adjourned at 9:21 p.m. Thank you. What's that?
Thought it was going to be a short one.